Welcome to a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda.
Well, good morning, everyone. If you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our word of inspiration this morning, Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God." And our dog this morning, Commissioner Kalo, has our dog from the kennel. Whoops.
Choke himself.
Yeah.
I see all these deputies, they want this dog for a canine. I don't see this one jumping up through a truck or anything.
Come here, buddy. Yeah, come on.
Oh my God.
Oh, great dog. Come here.
Aw.
Our featured dog this week is a 3 to 4 year old male basset hound. He was found on West 39th Street in Lorain. So if anybody's missing him, you really got to stop by and get him. When's he go up for adoption?
Saturday the 17th.
He's up for adoption this Saturday, the 17th. How many dogs do we have total?
31.
31 total dogs, so, I mean, it's almost Christmas time. Nice pet for the family. I think our friends from Labor could use a mascot.
Yeah.
And before we get to the agenda, we have a presentation this morning, Madam Clerk.
We do. The Bricklayers, Kenneth Kudela.
Just what, yeah. Don Romancak, our Community Development Director, I guess, doing the introductions.
Thank you today. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Kenneth Kudela. He is the State Director for the Bricklayers. He and I had actually crossed paths as they were constructing the facility at 113 and 58, going over some stormwater things, and I'm happy to say they're all in compliance. Building's been going up and is looking beautiful, and I thought that this was a type of project that we'd really like to be able to share with the board, in that it's a training facility. I don't want to steal all of the thunder, so Mr. Kudela can bring you up to speed on what they've been up to and what this means for Lorain County in the future as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kenneth Kudela, State Director for the Bricklayers. Thank you.
Thanks.
You have a
PowerPoint.
presentation?
Well, first off, thank you for allowing me to come here today and share what we're doing in Lorain County. I'd first like to say it's glad to be back. After about 10 years up in Hudson, we are now back in Lorain County and glad to be back and working at that facility. If I could, I'd just like to take just a moment to explain or to go over just a little bit of history on the Bricklayers Union. And start out by, we are the oldest continuous international union in the construction trades, starting back in 1865. And in their first convention the following year, one of the locals that came on board was from Cincinnati, Ohio. Following the next year, they had their second convention in Cincinnati. So we've had a long history going way back to 1866 when Ohio came on board with that international union. We started out when they consolidated. They brought the Ohio was split into a northern and southern administrative council. And they have since combined those locals together in 2008 when I started as the director. And then the following year, I asked that Kentucky be added to that administrative district council that we now represent. The Ohio-Kentucky Administrative District Council does all of the administrative duties for 19 different locals, do all the contracts, do all the grievances, all those sort of things. But the primary function that we do, and that I'm kind of the most proud of, is we do all the training for not only the apprentices, but for all the journey people that are cross-training into one of the other 8 trades that we have, or upgrade training. We do a lot of training for OSHA compliance, for safety, as well as the new technology that comes out, and you know, it's always evolving. We opened a center in 2011, much like this center here, that'll service all of the locals from the Columbus area south, and then from the Tennessee line in Kentucky all the way up to Batavia, which is just outside of Cincinnati. When we did that, we combined all the local trainings from all the individual locals and put them into one center. And that's what we're doing with this northern center, this training facility that we're building at Levitt Road and 58, or 113, I'm sorry. Like I said earlier, we spent about 10 years in Hudson, had our administrative offices there and a training facility there that took care of the northeast corner of Ohio. And when Toledo came on, we consolidated all those locals from the northern portion of the state and brought Toledo in to do our training there in that facility. We saw a need to get moved over into a more central location for northern Ohio. So the new center that we're constructing now, about 30,000 square feet of training space, will train the 8 primary crafts that we represent. Of course, the bricklayers, cement masons, marble masons, stone masons, terrazzo workers, tile layers, the tile, marble, and terrazzo finishers, the helpers that go along with those trades, and then the pointer cleaners and caulkers. For the folks you see hanging on the side of the building, washing them down and caulking. The building, the location will also house about 18,000 square feet of administrative office space. And that's where we'll, you know, our primary offices will be all right there in that location, where we'll have, do all the administrative duties, you know, that go along with doing the contracts and all those type of things that we do. We've got 26 full-time employees and 4 part-time employees that work in the administrative side, and as well as the training facilities. The bulk of those employees are with the training side. We've got the 6 full-time instructors, as well as the 4 part-time employees, are all related just to that training center there to teach the various crafts, as well as the safety that goes with that. I'd like to point out that our training facility is fully funded by our members. They do this with a cents per hour contribution that they, like to say, they pay forward. There's no, you know, no outside sources of income that we have. It's all done, you know, through our own contributions by the journey people and the apprentices that pay into that training center, that we'll train the next generation that'll then pay for the following generation, and just a perpetual contribution. And that's all voted on by the members, kind of a self-imposed tax, if you will. One of the things we're looking forward to doing with the new facility is it opens up this area to us to allow us to do a number of we do a number of contests, competitions, if you will, and typically on the high school level we do those at local trade schools. This will allow us to have a facility where we can get them all together in one spot and work with the area schools to do those competitions and do those you know, preliminary competitions that they'll go on then to compete at the state level through their Skills USA that you know, all the schools participate with. So as a product of that environment, it's where I started out at as, you know, as a graduate of Lorain County Vocational School. Back then when we started doing those contests and I went and competed at the state level, it was our first competition. It was kind of very unnerving, if you will, going into that environment for the first time. So we started this idea of a high school skills competition just to allow them to get a little more comfortable with you know, in that setting. And it has helped. We've had a number of folks from this area that have gone on and competed at the national level and done very well. So. And as I said, it'll allow us to you know, work with a lot of these schools. The facility will be open for a number of different venues. We'll have about a 300-seat hall there that we'll be able to use for you know, a number of different events or different venues that'll be able to use that facility to host their you know, their different banquets and that sort of thing. Be glad to answer any questions that you may have or that come up.
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to thank you for being here this morning. Lorain County, I think we're a county that is certainly known as being a friend of labor and believe strongly in our labor roots. And so this is, you couldn't find a more ideal place, I think, to be other than here in Lorain County. And we want to welcome you to Lorain County. And before I ask my question, though, I do want to thank you and organized labor for all that you did in Columbus in the past couple weeks. When there were efforts underway to cut unemployment benefits from 26 weeks to 20 weeks, and labor really mounted a strong army that went down there and made it possible to put that on hold, because that certainly would have been, you know, devastating for folks who were out of work, getting kicked when they were down, going from 26 weeks to 20 weeks of benefits. So I can't thank you enough for that and for standing up for the working families of Ohio. You know, always a lot of talk. Even when I was in Columbus, there was a lot of talk about, you know, we got to get everybody to college. They got to get that 4-year degree. And you know, I think as time goes on, everybody is starting to wake up a little bit more to realize that it's important that we really stress the trades and getting people into the trades. What are you seeing as a great challenge of trying to recruit people into the trades?
I would have to say that the biggest challenge we have had up until very recently was jobs for them to have. Mm-hmm. We have been very fortunate that we've had a number of folks. I mean, we reach out to a lot of different venues to try and encourage people to come into the trades and have a pretty good, you know, our last 3 years now have been our largest classes starting into the Bricklayers Apprenticeship Program since I've taken over. So it's, you know, we reach out to all the, you know, the one-stops. We recruit from all the schools. I think along with that is just telling our story. You know, myself as a bricklayer, I can build any building that comes along, but to tell that story is something that we don't do very well. And we have just now started to market ourselves. So getting that story out, that it is an alternative, that it is, you know, a good way to raise a family. And getting that message out is kind of crucial. And we've not done a very good job of that in the past. And I think we're doing a much better job now, and that's helped us to bring folks in. So we've been recruiting, some real large classes. We've also, along that lines, we've also partnered with the community colleges. So our graduating apprentices now come out of their apprenticeship with anywhere from 32 to 36 credits towards an associate's degree. They don't have very much, a few classes, and they can get their associate's degree in construction management. And it's just selling all those little things, those little parts of the story, is what we need to do better.
What kind of wage would they expect to make when they're in the workplace then,
Well,
once they graduate?
They start out at 50% of their journeyman rate, which is, for this area, around just short of $32 an hour. So, they start out at 50% of that, and it's a graduating scale going up at each 6 months. They graduate up between 5 to 10% until they graduate out at the end of their 4-year period. And with that, they start out with their health insurance and their pension contributions that go into that right from day one. And it's, they're being paid while they learn. And that's another key part to what we do.
Yeah, Ken, I've said this for years. We spent too many years, the last 3 or 4 decades, saying everybody's got to get a 4-year education. And then where do you put them at after that?
Correct.
As I told a couple of my kids, they have the opportunity now after 70 or 80 grand to supersize me if they're lucky. And coming out of trades myself, former signator to the carpenters, because they'd argue with the bricklayers all the time about who the tile layers are. But
Yeah, but we know the real answer.
So, I mean, the more the apprentice programs, and again, labor isn't sexy anymore. In the old days, it was, everybody went into the trades of some sort, whether you start out in a steel plant like myself or, Ford, and you went into skilled trades or building trades, 310 or 8, with the laborers or 860. And I think we've got to get that mindset turning, because you're not going to build a building with a computer. You're not going to install a floor covering with a computer. You're not going to put light bulbs in with a computer. It takes manpower to do that, and people are skilled to do it properly. And we've seen over the years enough times when you don't use skilled trades what happens in regards to those type of buildings, whether it's fire or tragedy or whatever else. But it's nice to have the apprentice school. I know when I was signatory with the carpenters local, the guys that came out are ones who really applied themselves, because you always get the ones who don't.
Sure.
The ones who really applied themselves and learned the trade were just exemplary employees, and their work was, first class. So it's nice to have this here, so maybe more people get into the trades. It's more visible versus having to be out, the other side of Cleveland or something. People don't see it, they don't think about it. And again, we've got a great farm team come out of the joint vocational school and our other vocational programs in the city of Lorain, who isn't part of JVS. So no, I love having you guys in town. That's great.
Well, we're excited to be here. It gives us an opportunity to be right on the center of everything that's happening, and we're excited to be there and look forward to working with the community and the area development groups as we go forward. So.
Lorain County is more of a trades area versus Hudson anyway. That's the executives out
Yeah,
there.
it was a nice position when we just had Northeast Ohio. This certainly lends itself to a much broader area. Great accessibility. We're right on a perfect location for accessibility and visibility, and it'll work very well for us.
I was just going to ask you too, and I know it's a sensitive subject, but quite frankly, I think there was a good relationship with labor in the past when it came to building school buildings in the state and things like that. I don't know what that relationship is like currently. If you wanted to update us on what that looks like.
As far as the school construction?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we continue to work with, a number of districts. I know a lot of the buildings that have been, just recently have been more towards Cuyahoga County and that area, and we're doing a number of buildings there right now, with our folks and a lot of the other skilled trades that are out there. I know there's some upcoming work here in the county, and we look forward to being a part of that and working through that process as well.
It just seemed like, my opinion, it seemed like this administration was making it a little bit more difficult for skilled labor to be working on some of those projects, and I'm very disappointed by that.
Yes, it has been a little bit more difficult, and I think our message has always been that, as pointed out, you kind of get what you pay for, and we bring a product that's has a great value, and it's going to stand the test of time, and that's what we bring as the trade unions. It's kind of what we bring to the table, and I'd like to point that back out.
I know, we would hear the stories about the leaking roofs and the ripples in the floors, and you get what you pay for, and if you want to do it right, you have to have skilled labor to get the job done.
A lot of what we do in our trades, in the trade centers, they spend a lot of time in the classroom. It's not just out in the shop floor building projects. They spend a good half of their time in the classroom learning the technical side of why they're doing what they're doing when they're out there on the job sites. And that's a huge part of making those folks better tradespeople. They understand why they're doing what they're doing, instead of just going out on a job site and someone told me this is how to do it, so that's how I'm doing it. They know why they're doing it, and they know the technical applications to it, and that's a huge component.
Thank you very much, and I know I want to try to get over there and get a first-hand tour myself and take a look at things. And we're just glad to have you in Lorain County. I feel like you're at home where you should be.
Yeah, well, it's back home for me, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Madam Clerk, I know that we've got a number of folks here today who probably want to be, commenting on some things, and just looking over the agenda here, I guess I was going to ask, we'll try to work through this agenda as quickly as we can, though, but I think the purpose that most folks are here. So I'm going to ask items 18 and 19 probably be placed right here near 29 with the sheriff.
Under Resolutions Number 1, Investments.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Appropriations.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Transfers.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
No advances, no repayments, no requisitions, no travel. Bills.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Under the airport, enter in a grant contract for $45,442 with ODOT Office of Aviation to rehab Taxi B east of Taxiway A and Taxiway B west of Taxiway A for fiscal year 17.
Okay, we got our A's and B's straight, right?
Again.
Okay. So move.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Cortez, do you want to
I do.
let people know that this is not coming out of general fund?
I always want to let people know it's not coming out of the general fund, and don't want to be a broken record, but I continue to read the occasional post and blogs and get the occasional emails of why we don't shut down that airport that we're spending $700,000 a year on. Let me make this perfectly clear. We're not spending $700,000 of general fund money on the airport.
50.
We put in $50,000 a year, and then occasionally some grant matching at 5% to 95% money that we have to have because we're required to maintain the runways, taxiways, and the overall condition of the airport within FAA standards. You have no choice. It's every time you take a dollar from the FAA, you are promising for 20 years to maintain those things. The federal government will sue you into compliance, period. End of story. The $50,000 is down from $650,000 or $700,000, sometimes more, that the general fund used to provide to the airport in the early 2000s. We privatized the operations in a public-private sector collaborative that's worked out well. We have squeezed as much federal dollars as we can from the maintenance, and right now we're doing everything but growing corn on the roof of the buildings to bring in revenue out there. So I get very frustrated that we don't seem to be able to communicate to a small segment, or maybe possibly a large segment, that we don't have a choice and we're not investing a lot of general fund dollars there. You know the story, the FAA story. We went there, we tried, we made our pitch, and we knew we were going to get
Skewered.
slapped.
Skewered.
No, it was not a pleasant experience, but we don't have a choice. This is another one of those things that we try to communicate that somehow doesn't grab hold. People go on, they look at our budget. We have this thing with the state auditor. Our transparent budget, but they don't know how to read the budget. They only look at expenditures. They don't look at where the revenues are coming from and being produced. If they did, they would understand a lot better. So that people have to pay more attention. It's just not a lopsided profit and loss statement that you can easily say, look, you're spending $700,000 out there. Yes, but from the revenue generated at the airport and from grants, and very little from the general fund.
And then once that last federal dollar is taken, the clock starts for a 20-year window?
20-year window.
It's like being married to the mob. I mean, once you're in, right?
Well,
it's kind of hard to get out. And it's a terrible analogy, maybe, but it's
No, it's more like being addicted to substance abuse. The only airport I know that has really tried, there's two that have made a jump, trying to get off the federal stream of hostage dollars is Lorain County. They haven't taken federal money in 4 or 5 years, but they have a much smaller operation than we do. And Lost Nations over, was that Willoughby or Willowwick?
Yeah, it's Lake County.
They some years ago, I don't think they have too much longer left, but they had a lot more private investment with that than we do at the county airport. Most everybody else has really struggled under those requirements. I do know that Mayor Daley, by night, one evening, ran the bulldozers across the runway of one of the little regional airports in Chicago because he was tired of the FAA. Then they sued him, made him fix the runway and the fence and everything else that they dug it up. So it's a tough road. I will say, though, the FAA has been fairly good partners with us with getting grant money. We've invested millions out there of federal dollars that they provided for taxiways, runways, aprons on the FBO, and so forth. But we're not going to be out of this game anytime soon.
Never. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within the jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
That would be Administrator Cortez.
Thank you, Commissioner Lundy. I do have a number of potential hires that I'd like to talk with the board about, most of them at Job and Family Services. I'd also like to update you. I'm in receipt of a completed labor contract for United Steelworkers America in the Treasurer's Office. I want to go over that with you. Also, potential sale of real estate and pending, it's not pending, litigation. I want to talk about litigation that that we filed last Friday. All of those topics are allowable under the Sunshine Act for executive session discussion, so I'd ask at the conclusion of our regular board meeting, we go into executive session and talk about those items I've outlined. Thank you.
Approve and waive the reading of the minutes of December 2nd and 7th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Authorize payment of $1,000 to Walter A. Fry Funeral Home, Lorain, for indigent veteran Melvin Turner Rinauer, Lorain, in accordance with the ORC 5901.25.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Authorize Administrator Cortez to execute and approve necessary documents for acquisition of such equipment, vehicles to protect the integrity of the Homeland Security.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Did you want to say something, Jim? You looked after I.
Yes, I do.
Are we
Just
allowed to talk
because
about it?
We are, but I'm not going to give you
Okay.
specificity. There are certain things with regard to security measures at some of our buildings, specifically the Justice Center, some of the work that's done by the Drug Task Force and our EMA department, some work they do that is covered under the Homeland Security Act that doesn't have to be released into the public. These issues will fall under that. It's a very tight area, so it's not as if it's one of those, oh, whoopee, look at what I got. But I need to be able to sign some documents and do some things without having to disclose a lot of information that will, sensitive information that could jeopardize us under those requirements.
Approve and enter a contract with Clark and Post Architects, Inc., Lorain, to perform architectural and engineering services for 911 Agency Operations Center in the amount of $90,000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Reject all bids received from Lorain County Courthouse Phase 2 project and instruct clerk to re-advertise.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Cordez?
Well, we didn't get what we wanted, so we're going to ask a second time.
10% above. Is that it?
A little bit more. I actually really don't even want to take them at 10% above. I think we should be able to get them at least at estimate or below. We're just going to try again. To answer Mr. Kalo's question we discussed about earlier, the first answer was it was missing in the first bid package. It's in this bid package.
Thank you.
With regard to completed bid specifications. I'm hopeful that we'll get a more aggressive bidding structure. That'll slow us down a little bit, but we've given ourselves a nice window to work in. I'm comfortable that we'll be able to progress smoothly, and this won't hold us up too much. If we don't like the bids next time, we'll go out again. It's all about the margins right now.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Authorize salary adjustments for Lorain Municipal Court judges effective January 1st, 2017, which reflects the county's two-fifth share. Judge Thomas Elwell Jr., administrative judge, biweekly rate will be $973.08, and then Judge Mark Mehoff, presiding judge, biweekly rate will be $950.
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
Well, just for explanation purposes, the county pays 40% of the municipal court judges' salaries because their cases do end up at the county level.
And for further explanation, we don't have a choice but to pay this because it's
Right.
required by the code.
Okay.
Right.
So whatever they send us, and that includes their bailiffs, it's just tough.
Right.
That's more money that you have really little control over. And I've challenged this off and on over the last 20 years without much success. I think the code leaves room for interpretation, but unfortunately the interpretation that keeps coming down isn't mine. But we have to pay this.
Yeah, it's frustrating when you're asked to manage a budget and then you're just basically told this is what you have to approve, whether you like it or not, or agree with it, or whatever the rate may be, so.
Or whatever the local rules are in
Right.
regards to benefits and or pay raises. We
Right.
don't have any say in that, even
No.
though we're paying 40% of the share.
Right.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Authorize salary increase for areas clerk of municipal courts, Avon Lake Clerk Court Kathy Navanti, effective December 1st, 2016, at a rate of $730.40, and Alariah Clerk Court Eric Rothbury, effective January 1st, 2017. I don't even know if that's a year, 29.
Wow, boy.
2917.
I don't think we'll
That's
be
way in
around
the
that long.
What?
We won't be here.
No.
At a rate of $1,645.64.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Authorize county administrator to provide and execute all necessary documents effective December 15, 2016 through December 31st, 2016 for the year-end close activity, including but not limited to transfers, advances, repayments, appropriations, requisitions, travel, bills, payroll-related transactions, and payments.
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
This is basically just giving the administrator the ability to balance out the books and nickels and dimes and anything by emergency because the board won't be meeting. So he gets the inherent ability just to make sure everything balances at the end of the year, so you get to play commissioner for a couple of weeks.
If you get a postcard from Mexico, worry.
Exactly.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Under Children and Family Council, enter into contract with Children's Development Center for the therapist consultation services for Help Me Grow fiscal year 17 in the amount of $5,000 effective January 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2017.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Enter into contract with Connecting Kids for Help Me Grow Central Coordination Grant fiscal year 17 effective January 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2017 at a cost of $2,600.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Under Community Development, authorize final payment of $78,059.68 to J&J Property Holdings, LLC, under Amherst Tax Increment Financing Agreement entered into December 19, 2007. J&J Property Holdings, LLC would distribute the remaining balance of the sewer fund in the amount of $51,669.75.
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
It's all paid off, done. We're done.
Can you
All
come up
but-
and explain?
All but one, and we've set the money aside. And we have put it aside, right, those funds?
Correct. We're setting aside about, I think it's the
Eight-
maximum
eight or
amount,
nine?
$7,000 or $8,000, which is 50% of, up to 50% of the cost to connect to the sewer for the one family. We are going to notify them and let them know that in the future, if they want to. Currently, The property is too far away from the sewer, so they are not mandated to, but we thought it important to provide them that option. They're the only person or the only household left on that stretch that is not connected to the sanitary sewer that was provided.
Remembering that the TIF was entered into so that the sewers could be provided to the development, and the homeowners affected along the way would not be forced at an economic disadvantage to tap into that sewer. I don't anticipate this homeowner tapping in anytime soon, but we preserved the funds to do so, and it's in a restricted account. And the rest, we should really close out the TIF now because it's done.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
TIFs that work.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr.
Bless you.
Kayla,
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Approve and enter in a housing revolving loan fund administrative agreement with the State of Ohio, Ohio Department Development Agency for the term of 3 years beginning January 1st, 2016. This agreement allows the county to expend their program income funds.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Approve the updates to the erosion and sediment control rules and includes the permit conditions.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Approve updates to post-construction rules comprehensive stormwater management program and includes the permit conditions.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Award contract to Tim and/or Mary Baki at 232 Park Avenue, number 38, Amherst, to receive grant assistance from CDBG Program Year 15 set aside for private rehab in the amount of $1,976.40, or 50% of the total cost, up to $10,000, whichever is less.
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
Don, I do have one question on this. Is this out of the Amherst grant of the 300,000? I didn't get that question to you.
Correct, it is.
Okay, what, is that a residence, number 38?
No, this is a commercial structure downtown. I believe.
This is out of the 300,000.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I
For the
was
downtown
assuming, but I didn't
revitalization.
understand it. Number 38, it sounded like an apartment unit. I'm trying to think they were doing
Yeah.
rehab upstairs or something.
No, this, we're installing an awning.
Oh,
And splitting
okay,
the
all right then.
cost.
Part of the facade. Thank you.
I gotta tell you, I had an opportunity to be down in Amherst to meet with the mayor
We were there
last
last
week.
night.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, jump on my story. Go ahead. Ha-ha. But the parking lots are beautiful down there. Having public parking close to the downtown, is such an enhancement there, and you were integral to the city being able to complete that work. It really pulls a lot of the downtown activities together over there. So it's been a great project to get with them,
Their Main Street's done a great job working with us.
certainly.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Under Job and Family, authorize various personnel in 2017 to utilize the various credit cards not to exceed $4,000. Said usage is for work-related expense, food, transportation, gas and oil, motor vehicle repair and maintenance, conference, telephone, and lodging.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Under Solid Waste, enter into contract with SCS Engineers in the amount of $68,950 for Organics Class 2 facility, Phase 1 business plan located at 7450 Terminal Drive, Lorain.
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
You want to talk a little bit about what we're going to do on that? or
Well, I
you okay?
didn't know how you wanted to go forward on that if you.
Well, it's
wanted to
it's
talk about-
phase one, recognizing that, we had to really back the train up on this whole thing from the trajectory it was taken a year ago. This is a little more cost than I thought on phase one, but it's a good project. This may be the end of the project, may be the beginning of the project, where we need to do the analysis, we need to find out if there's enough material to justify spending the kind of money that this facility would need to operate not at a loss. I don't know if it's going to operate at a profit, but it certainly needs to break even for us to be in this line. It's really needed in the community, but I'm not certain the location that we received, which was a free location through tax foreclosure over on Barmhart Road, is the ideal place. So we need to come up with a business plan. We need to look at the source materials. We need to look at the community as a whole. This has not been done, and we should not spend any money until we are sure that we have a reasonable chance for success at this. And this wasn't presented to us this way the last time.
Correct.
So I'll keep you in the loop as we move forward. This is a great time during the colder months to be doing this phase of the project.
Beautiful.
And again, not general fund money, this is solid waste money.
Solid waste money. Right. There's almost nothing on here on this agenda that's solid.
Well, I know, but
that's
a
general
lot of
fund
people
money.
don't understand the different pools of money and what it can and cannot be used for, so.
Right.
Got to continue to educate.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Under the Sheriff, enter a renewal agreement with Dr. Tran for dental services in the amount of $106 per hour effective January 1st, 2000. That should be 17 and December 31st, 2017.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Madam Clerk, before we get to 18 and 19, which got to the move, I think we still need to have some other discussion ongoing. We've got a good turnout today. Last week, there wasn't any success in trying to raise the revenue for county operations, but again, I'll plead with my commissioners. We've looked at these budgets. They are appalling at best. We have been living on borrowed time for a very long time. We have made multiple attempts to increase our revenue. Sales tax is what the county lives on, where cities live on income tax. Again, just reiterating, Lorain County is tied for the lowest sales tax in the state of Ohio, yet we're the 9th largest county. Multiple counties with half our size have larger general fund budgets and provide more services. Everybody around us has a higher sales tax than us. And I don't think anybody's shy about going to Erie County and enjoying Kalahari, Cedar Point, and the benefits out there, and or Cuyahoga County with our sporting events and the shopping and the restaurants out there. Again, we've got some budgets that our county administrator has been working on, looking at 20% across the board salary PRS cuts. We have decreasing revenues because of the Medicaid sales tax change. Could cost us $1 million to $1.5 million a year alone, and that doesn't count the other $750,000 to $1 million that it could affect our county jail on its separate 0.25%. I'm just real uncomfortable with approving a 20% budget cut. So I don't know if we want to have more discussion on this. We've got a lot of elected officials here accordingly. I'll throw it back at the chair.
Sure.
But I would really like to hear from the folks this most affects. All the residents aren't here who it directly affects. Not only our employees, but also the residents who would get less services, whether it's the deputies in the township or it's the warrants in the cities, and or who we can service at our county jail if there's a reduction there.
Well, Commissioner, if you look at a couple of things in the budget, and then I've given you a few of the line items that can't be cut,
Right.
You'll notice right on the first page, it's almost $1.2 million that we have to pay our share of the Job and Family Services money. That's not discretionary. You don't have control of that $1.2 million. There's a lot of things you don't have control over. You don't have control over court costs, mandated services at the courts. I'm not really wanting to have a conversation of whether they're reasonable or not reasonable. It is what it is, and we.
Well, veteran services.
And
It's going up
veteran services.
$800,000 in the last 4 or 5 years with returning vets and the services they get. That's not revisable at all. It's just reviewable, and we accept.
I'd like people to continue to believe that you're so important that you can affect all of these things, but you can't. And of course, you have to look at those services that are mandated by the Ohio Revised Code first. You are obligated to pay for those before you pay for discretionary services. People can argue what's discretionary and what should be not discretionary, but the code is clear on those things to you, and the guidance it provides for you to authorize you to do your job. It's not as simple as people think it is, because we have limited availability of authority to cut things.
We try to educate the public over and over again. I know, for many in the room here today, you're directly involved in county government, so you have a better understanding of what's going on. But, it's just so frustrating trying to educate the public and the message not getting through. And, as my colleague, Commissioner Kokoski, kept stating throughout the conversation this morning, these aren't general revenue funds that we're making decisions on here today. And there's some things, as we pointed out, that we're just required to do with some of these increases that, actually go to the courts. And, I put a letter to the editor in the paper just trying to, once again, educate the public about the severity of the situation we're in. We're facing millions of dollars in cuts. I tried to indicate that, those connected with the justice system, make up about 70% of the budget. We can't cut the budget of the judges. The judges can court order their budgets. That's by law. So then that leaves the hardworking men and women working for the sheriff's department, prosecutor's office, to face the brunt of things. You're all dedicated public servants. You work on the front lines battling this heroin epidemic. It's certainly overrunning our county. We have other departments providing very valuable services to our taxpayers. I know all you want to do is come to work, do your job, support your family, and go home. 6 straight times the voters have rejected a sales tax increase. One was last approved 20 years ago. I was looking at what the cost of some things were in 1995. Obviously, the costs aren't the same today. So when people say you need to operate things like your household budget, well, you couldn't survive today on what you had a household budget of in 1995. Yet we're being asked to do that. We try to explain with the sales tax. 6.5%, as Commissioner Kalo pointed out, one of the 4 least expensive counties in the state. And the state gets 5 3/4 of that. 5 3/4. We don't take the whole 6.5%, and then a quarter of that goes towards the jail. We get the 0.5%. Once again, when I tell people that, they find it shocking. And as we've said time and time and time again, I just don't understand why people aren't very upset with Columbus. Columbus they're putting the screws to us pretty good. Pretty good. We've been cut $9.9 million since Governor Kasich has come into office. That means your money is going down to Columbus and your money is not coming back. And that's why taxpayers are facing all these tax issues by the schools, the cities, and the county. By keeping what should be your money and your money not coming back. The governor is down there beating his chest and bragging about how he's sitting on a $2 billion, that's with a B, $2 billion surplus. We should be demanding that money come back home. So, these are inflicted wounds that come from somewhere else. These aren't self-inflicted. These have been inflicted thanks to Columbus not keeping its promise. But we've tried and tried again to try to educate the public about what it is that we do. I was paid a visit yesterday by the sheriff and the prosecutor. I wasn't born with much of a backside. There's not much left after that meeting. But I want to obviously, give the sheriff, the prosecutor, others that are here that, want to tell us about the severity of, cuts that potentially, could be taking place in this county. So Sheriff Denny.
Thanks, Commissioners. Good morning, and good morning to everybody. I do have some of my command staff here in case a question comes up that I can't answer, because I don't have all the answers, I can tell you that. My Chief Deputy, Dennis Cavanaugh, is here with me. He runs the Drug Task Force. You covered a lot about the sales tax, too, and I know nobody likes any taxes, including me. I don't want to pay any more taxes myself. But what I do want is to have services. And like I said, nobody needs a deputy or a police officer until they need them, and then they want them there right now. It's not, I want to wait on it, just like a fireman. If your house is on fire, you can't say, well, we'll get there in a half an hour. They got to get there like right now. Like you brought up with the sales tax, I have the same chart that you guys have, and when you look at it, you're right, we're the 9th largest county, but yet there's 4 counties, we're the 4th lowest. And if you look at every county around us, they're higher than 6.5, and they're much smaller than us, obviously, except for Cuyahoga. And theirs is 8%, which is the highest in the state. But as you know, my budgets, I try to be as conservative as I can when I make my budgets out. But you guys know there's certain things that, the costs keep going up. And I do have 4 unions out at the sheriff's office. And, you have to negotiate with them under laws. And you can't just sit there and say, hey, guess what? You're not getting any money. You're not getting any increases in anything. So they've been good about a lot of things, and they're not trying to be pigs and ask for a lot, but obviously they want to keep up with the cost of living themselves. So as you know, my general fund budget that I asked for in 2017, which the deputies are paid out of, was $5,611,905. The jail budget is $13,383,800. And obviously, the jail is the biggest gorilla in the room. We know that. And there's certain reasons for that, which I know you guys know those reasons too. You guys have a tough job. I understand that. But the deputies out on the road also, you know, they have to make life and death decisions every day themselves. I mean, like somebody brought up to me about, I have the grand jury come in every 3 months. They come in and inspect the jail. As you guys know, you get the same report I do, and the prosecutor gets it. And, you know, they always tell me that, Sheriff, you don't have enough manpower in the back. I understand that. They always say you need these renovations in your jail. I understand that too, but you're right, the money is tight right now. And I always have one person in the audience that stands up and says, Sheriff, why are you saving these bums that are on heroin, on fentanyl, and on drugs? Why don't you just let them die? And the question I always ask them is, if that was your son or daughter or family member or neighbor, you just want us to decide who lives and who dies. Well, we don't do that. We try to save people's lives. That's our jobs. But, you know, once they say that, they go, well, if it's my family member, then I want them saved. I says, that's somebody's family member. And have they made mistakes in life? Yes, as we all do as human beings. But we can't throw our hands up in the air and say we're not going to try and help anybody here. I got a personal thing involved with this, as I know other people in this room do. I had a family member get hooked on that stuff, and it's devastating. But we know, like as human beings, we make mistakes.
Before you go on, I've been reading a lot of the blogs, and they're saying, stop paying for the Narcan. The Sheriff's Department's not paying for the Narcan.
No,
correct?
we're lucky in this county that we don't. The other counties, I'm sure that they're paying, their departments are paying for it. We've been lucky, and I believe the chief's got a little bit more information on that.
We've been very fortunate here. We're the pilot county that started in the state. It was October of 2013, and it worked pretty well now. The whole state's there. We were fortunate enough that our area hospitals paid for all of ours. There's over 500 officers in the county, and it was paid. And every 2 years they expire, and depending on when you get it, they may expire before that. So they've been doing that upkeep for us. Now the county health department, they have also have some grant funding that they're purchasing some, and that's where we're getting some also.
Right.
So we've been very fortunate here.
Yeah.
These kits run, what, about $4?
Well, when we first started, they were $22 a piece. Now they're well over $48 a piece. Okay, and each officer carries 2. And unfortunately, with all the fentanyl products, everything else that's out there, a lot of when Narcan's administered, it's taken 6 to 8. Okay, so sometimes more. Okay, and hopefully EMS is pretty close because obviously there's only so many officers responding to a call with so many of those doses to go around. So that problem's not getting any better. I know the sheriff and I, we covered this pretty well, the state of the narcotics in our county. It's not getting any better, and obviously it's getting worse. Our trend, 2 weeks ago we told you there was 105 overdose. The year before that we had 64. I said there was probably a dozen pending. So
Deaths, not just overdoses, but deaths.
Yes, overdose deaths.
Let's talk about how many overdoses.
We can't even tell you that, because
Right.
most of the time we don't know, okay? It's not reported to us, or it's not always given to us from the hospitals, obviously, for certain reasons. I told you there's like 12 pending. Since that time, the county coroner sent me those reports, the tox reports. 7 more of those died. The majority of that was had a little bit of heroin, but the majority had fentanyl, 3-meth-fentanyl, U-47,000, and a combination of that, and that's a killer. And that's the potency is much greater. Depending on what study you look at, it could be as high as 10,000 more potent than morphine. So those are real problems, and we have more pending. So we're more than doubled our overdose death. And you know the side effects with that. Obviously, a lot of these folks don't have jobs. They may have a $400 or $500 habit a day. Where you think they're getting that from thefts, burglaries, or anything else, which impacts everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, so it impacts everybody in this county. So it's a very difficult thing. It's not getting any better. It's only going to get worse. So as much support as we can get, and we put a lot of effort in this, and even working with social agencies, it takes all of us to fight
Yep.
it. We're starting in those directions. We've made some very good progress, but we've got a long ways to go. So.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I've heard
Oh,
a
that's
lot
okay.
of that.
And you're exactly right. I mean, we used to have 10 to 15 overdose deaths a year from drugs. Now we're going to say 140 this year. And you hate to see us lead the nation or anything, but Ohio leads the nation in opiate abuse.
And
That's
deaths.
unfortunate,
Yeah.
but it's reality of what's going on in the world today. Just getting as the county administrator mentioned, there is certain mandated duties and then there's certain discretionary duties. And you guys know I've been up here arguing with you on certain things, but obviously, I don't believe that a law enforcement division is discretionary, especially to 60,000 people that actually live in the townships. We've had this conversation in the past before. I came from a city. I'm from the city of Lorain. I understand. I was a Lorain policeman for 13 years before I came to the sheriff's office. And boy, did I get an eye-opener since I've been here for 31 years. My predecessor, Sheriff Mahoney, he mentored me pretty good. He's a great guy. But, I knew nothing about a civil office. I really knew that much about a jail. I knew about being a policeman and we're just working out on the streets, and I knew how to get to the grand jury in Elyria and back to Lorain. But that's about what I know. But now we know with the county court system, you got 6 criminal division courts that you're servicing, 3 domestic relation, and 1 probate. And we're in those courts all the time. And then as a deputy sheriff, there's 5 municipal courts that we also service to some extent and have to go to too. So that is a monumental task. And as you guys know, it's
And that's mandated.
yeah, that the security and certain things for the jail or for the you're right, for the courts are mandated. I mean, I don't have a choice but to take the inmates to the courts back and forth. Years ago, I guess in hindsight, the one commissioner did actually, I thought, had a pretty good idea when we built the Justice Center to possibly put the jail on top of it. That would have probably saved us a lot of transportation costs, but at the time I knew money was an issue, which it always is. But that probably would have been a good idea at the time. But as you know, the jail originally was built in 1977. It came from 3rd and Middle and went over there. So that jail actually is now, 40 years old. And there hasn't been a lot of renovations to it. We've had some. The county administrator has worked with you as the commissioners to help us out where he can. But as we know, the capital improvements money is gone. There's $0 for that. Everything goes towards operations now. We used to have some capital improvement money, but that's dried up probably for at least 2 years now. And the 1/4% sales tax that was passed in 1995, the new edition opened up in 98, that's bringing, it used to bring in about 6.5 to 7 million. It's bringing in about 9.5 now, as you guys know, and that 1/4%. But I just gave you the figures to run a jail. It's about 13.5 million. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that you guys are supplementing from the general fund, anywhere from $3 to $4 million every single year.
That 0.5% that the county gets out of the 6.5%, a lot of that is going to the jail to subsidize what the quarter does not cover.
Correct.
So-
Because it's not, should a sheriff run a jail? It's mandated.
Oh, yeah.
I have to run a jail. I can't refuse inmates. If a police officer shows up at our door and says, I have an arrest here, Sheriff, I can't say, guess what, the inn's full, see you later, just drop them off somewhere.
We either run a jail or we pay to house the prisoners in somebody else's jail.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And there's a lot of counties that do that, are paying a lot bigger bucks to house them at different
Right,
locations.
so, not to cut hairs, but if you don't run a jail, you don't want to run a jail, the sheriff, if you tell the sheriff you're not going to fund a jail, he's just going to send you a bill to house prisoners someplace. And that's happened in some communities where there's been a bit of a dust-up between the authorities, but he has to house the prisoners, and you're required to pay that bill.
And my jail administrator's here today, and so is Captain Hammond, who oversees the jail, and they understand that, we're taking in over 8,000 inmates a year. And then you're not only taking them in, but you have to release a lot of them too. So you're booking them in, and after a while, then you're booking them back out. Recidivism is high, so they're coming back in and out. It's like a revolving door for them. The prosecutor can speak on a lot of that too right now, but I can tell you, the commitments are up. They're up again this year. State charges, the cities, believe me, the cities understand how the game's played, and I don't blame them. If I was a chief in a city, I would do the same thing. They don't charge too much under municipal ordinances because they know they have to pay $75 per day for the inmates. They do it sometimes if they know the person has a job and can pay it because they get some of that money back. What they normally do now is they know if the guy's indigent or he's got no job, charge him under state charges. Sheriff's got to take him. Everything gets paid at that point by the county. Nothing's on the municipalities at that point. So there's not too many municipal ordinance charges anymore. They're all pretty much all state charges, I can tell you that.
Speaking of municipal, have we heard yes or no if Lorain's going to close their city jail? And what impact would that have on our jail?
They have a 10-day facility, which means they can't hold anybody longer than 10 days. Normally what they do, and it's a convenience for them because if they arrest somebody on Friday night, they can hold them in the jail until Monday morning. We always joke around at our facility that they back the bus up Monday after the courts have been in session and empty out the jail and bring everybody out to the county. And I understand that. It's a financial thing for them, and if I was a business person doing their job, I'd do the same thing.
Sheriff, while you're talking about the jail, would you mention the medical care, the things that you're required to pay for? A lot of people are angry that we do those things. I don't think they understand that we're required to do those things once they come into our custody.
Yes, once they're in the care and custody, and we've had Attorney General opinions on this, we wrote for them. And do I believe that they probably should have the best medical care of anybody? No. But unfortunately, if they're in your care and custody, Attorney General says you are responsible for their health care. And they're not the best human beings that took care of themselves. A lot of them are drug addicts, a lot of them are alcoholics, combination of both. But
Now, you had 2 dialysis patients this year? That
Yes.
really drove up our costs?
yeah, that really did. And I know Lisa has been talking to my secretary, Kelly Thompson, about how the medical costs have inflated. I can only try to project through the years of what medical costs are, but the county administrator is right. We had, and we still got them there, people that are going to dialysis twice a week. That whole bill comes back on us. We tried to bill back the insurance companies, even Social Security recipients and on SSI. Once they find out they're in jail, they say, hey, Sheriff, that's your problem now, not ours anymore. So they know they don't have to pay that bill, but unfortunately the county and we get stuck with those kind of bills. And you're right, just like we had the murderer from malaria, that he ended up having a stroke in our jail. Obviously, you're not going to bond a guy out like that, because if he walks away and kills somebody else, everybody looks like fools. But I had to have, this guy was in the Cleveland Clinic, I had to have 2 deputies around the clock, 3 different shifts, drive into the Cleveland Clinic, relieve each other, and obviously they're coming back and they're working overtime because it's going to take you at least a half an hour to get back from Cuyahoga County, and that went on for over 2 months. And that doesn't include the bill that we got for the inmate. Then we had to buy him a special bed at the jail because he had this stroke. And but do I think that's right? And does a normal citizen out there think that's right? No, I don't. But unfortunately, like you say, I don't make the laws. The state legislators do, and then I just have to kind of follow the laws, whatever they are.
Luckily, didn't the law just pass that once they're inpatient in the hospital for 24 hours, then it's on Medicaid instead
Yes.
of us?
It has changed, and also there's an active program now to get them enrolled so when they leave jail, they're immediately covered under the Medicaid, so that they're believing that as part of a reentry program, that will assist with potential help towards decreasing recidivism, because they'll have services upon leaving, because they get services in jail and then they leave and they have nothing.
Right.
So if they're on medications that they behavioral change medications, things like that, they get them when they're in the jail, but they leave, now they have no access to those medications, and that complicates their reentry and increases their recidivism.
Right. Well, it used to be when they came into the jail, the Medicaid was cut off, and now it's just suspended until they're discharged, so there's not that lapse.
It's suspended, plus it's the 24-hour rule, as you pointed out,
For
which will help.
inpatient hospitals.
Right, which will help us.
Right.
But
that's just new, that just happened.
But the one thing the Medicaid doesn't pay for is the cost of the deputies being
Right.
there.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
that's right.
And going back and forth. It'll pay for the hospital stay, but it won't cover
the-
all the out-of-pocket expenses that the sheriff has to incur to provide security while that person's in an inpatient status.
Yeah, and one thing that we do have, I mean, you know, we have a nursing staff there that they do a great job, as the county administrators alluded to, but we also have a thing where we're certified under the National Commission of Correction Healthcare. What that does, you have certain standards you have to meet to keep that, but liability insurance-wise for the county, it helps us out a lot, because if we ever get into lawsuits, we meet these standards. Just like the jail gets inspected every year from the state of Ohio under the Bureau of Adult Detention. They come in and inspect our jail, and they'll say, hey, your shower area is bad, this needs fixed, you're overcrowded, Sheriff, you're this, you're that. And for the overcrowding part, I tell them, hey, there's nothing I can do about that. I mean, we legally are supposed to hold 422 inmates. As you know, we've been as high as 554. We're not letting anybody out the door unless a judge gives me a court order saying, hey, they're going out the door. But that's, you know, once again, these are the laws that I don't make. I just can't arbitrarily say, you're getting out, you're staying, you're this. We did that at one time, and I can tell you when Sheriff Mahoney was here, I was in charge of the jail then. We would have to come in every morning and decide who gets out of jail, who stays. We tried to release the least of the inmates, and unfortunately, we had a guy in there for disorderly conduct one time. It was a habitual offender. He left the jail. An hour later, he went home and stabbed his girlfriend. and here we are, gee, we let this guy out of jail, and now he's in here for
It was
selling his-
soon after that we got the tax passed for the jail improvements around that time, because both papers were putting the revolving door on the front page. Remember, it was catch and release and
Yes.
the headlines, and finally, after 4 tries, we were able to get that sales tax.
That's correct. In the 5th try, it finally passed. And the jail needs, I sent you over a list of what the jail needs are. I mean, like I said, that building's falling apart. I mean, it ages, you guys go home at 4 o'clock over here. I mean, you got to keep certain heat on and certain things. That thing runs round the clock, 24 hours, 7 days a week. So our building technically ages 3 days to year 1, or anybody else that has a building here that's pretty much 8 to 4.
That lock situation is a very serious situation.
Yes, I explained that to you a week and a half ago, where and like I say, the jail administrator and the captains here, we actually had maximum security area. We have double doors to get back because it's a security feature. We had the outer door, and they went to open it and it froze. Well, we have emergency set of keys, so we can go open doors. We took the emergency set of keys back there, it would not open this lock. So I had to have one of my maintenance people come in, take that whole lock apart, because you can't find parts for these locks anymore. He finally got the thing open, but obviously, luckily, we're a direct supervision jail. I had 2 corrections officers in these maximum security areas with these inmates. If they would have known that, who knows what they would have done. Take somebody hostage, because you can't get any help to them at that time. That's something that we cannot have. I mean, those locks are so old, they're the original locks. Like I say, we go on eBay now to find parts for them because they don't even make them anymore.
Could have had a fire back there and not be able to get to the area. I mean, it could have
Exactly.
really
You have
been
some kind of
bad,
emergency
right?
like that. I mean, we're, once again, I say, as the prosecutor knows, get your checkbook out and let's see how many zeros we got to add at the end of it, because we're not keeping with upkeep. As you know, the inmate showers, I mean, the rooftop units, we got 7 of those that are constantly breaking down now.
When I was working on getting some of the shower work done, I was thinking of those prison movies where the mortar and the concrete's so bad that they just kind of carve their way out. And I understand the walls were pretty bad there before we did some work, and we have more work to do.
Yes, and like I said, you guys have helped us where you can, but sometimes the money's just not there now, and people got to understand that these are things that we don't have a choice on doing. There's 105 of those locks in the back there. Security cameras, that's another one. I mean, some of our cameras are so old, everything's digital now, but we still have some analog stuff. I mean, we need a whole security update with cameras. And I can tell you right now, we got over 130 cameras in that jail right now. And they are great because they not only, I look at it this way, cameras make your officers a little more professional too, but they also show exactly how the inmate's acting out. Just like with body cameras. I told you guys, I can tell you right now, this state legislature is heading down the path to mandate everybody to have body cameras on your officers. They're not going to give us any money to do it, just like they do with everything. Yeah, go ahead and do this. Just like this Ohio collaborative they're doing now, where they're telling everybody, you got to follow all these standards on use of force, hiring, this and that. They like to dictate all these rules to you, but there's never any money that comes with them, as you guys know that, and I know it too.
Well, come on, they gave you $5 towards your vest.
Yeah, we weren't
Come
on TV the last time you were here. Well, how much did you get in that federal grant for body armor?
I think it was like $1.97 or something.
Oh,
Yeah, I
that's
remember your
right.
response.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to decline this grant.
Yeah, I told them there's more paperwork to make out to try to apply for that money when you guys were paying. And that's another thing you bring up vests about for the deputies. They have a 5-year shelf life. I mean, after that, the manufacturer will not guarantee them anymore. So obviously, if you don't replace them and an officer gets shot and killed, you know what his family's going to say. Well, you knew this 5 years, you're supposed to replace it, and you didn't. And nobody wants that to happen. Even our weapons. The manufacturer says, your weapons last about 10 years, Sheriff. After that, you need to replace them because they just get old and the parts they don't make for them anymore. Inmate video visitation, that's another one. As you know, we used to have the corrections officers march them up to the visitation room. The attorneys would come in on one side, the family come in. We'd have the inmate on the other side. Years ago, we went to the video visitation, which is a great concept because that way we just bring the family or the attorney in one room, and there's a video there. You pick a phone up, and in their pod area, they pick it up. Well, I can tell you that's antiquated right now, that system. And as you know, some of that was paid through the phone contract services. And, I get beat up by people calling me, why do I have to pay a fee, Sheriff, when I call my kid in jail or he calls me at my home? My argument is, If I got a kid in the military and I call him over in Germany, do I pay for it or is it free? If I got a kid in college and he's over at the college, do I get to call him for free? No, we pay for it. But, you know, you can accept those charges or you cannot. And if you're indigent, we give you letters so you can write back and forth to home. But it's not a right to actually have a phone call all the time. Inmate body scanner. I told you guys this is something that we've got to have. It's not with the drugs the way they are. And, you know, I explained this here before that these inmates come in and they're hiding drugs in every orifice that you can think about where you can hide something. Now, the way the state legislature has made rules, the Supreme Court says we're allowed to strip search people when we put them back in general population. The state legislatures are like, well, you know, we don't really know if you can do that or not, so it's still up in the air. I mean, that's pretty good. The Supreme Court tells you can do it, but yet the legislators are saying we're not going to do it. But so we're allowed to have them when they're when shower and change. They take their clothes off. We search their clothes. You know, years ago when I was a policeman, it was like, you know, you used to tell people, hey, you checked everything on them. And, you know, obviously a man and a woman on a woman, but you were trying to make sure things weren't getting into your facility like guns and everything else. But with these guys are sneaking these drugs in. As you know, this year we had an overdose death in jail because a guy snuck in some fentanyl and heroin, gave it to another guy. The guy ingested it and he died. Well, you know, once again here, these body scanners, and they're not cheap. They're anywhere between $190,000 to about $220,000. Wood County Sheriff just got one. Stark County just got one. The sheriffs know this is once you get them, obviously, you're going to have a deterrent there, just like you do with a magnetometer, because somebody's always going to think, gee, if they catch me, they're going to charge me now with this. So now I got another felony on top of me. They are a big deterrent. So once we get one finally, I think people's mindsets will be, well, I'm not going to sneak something in because they're probably going to find it on me now. Well, right now, you know, we even had to tell the judges for work release. We don't want a work release program. Do I want a guy losing his job when he comes to jail, maybe for a DUI? But these are the guys that we really got to watch that are out there getting stuff, sneaking it back in, and then getting in the general population and giving stuff to other people. So that's another big concern. Control systems that open and close the doors. You know, we got a computer control system in each control room. Those were put in 2007. I can tell you those are wearing out. The battery backup system, we just had to replace one set, but I can tell you, for us to replace the ones back in the jail, probably the total cost is going to be about $75,000. Freezer units. We have 4 rooftop units that were done. I think Andy's got here that it supports all the food service. We're going to have to replace those soon at about a cost of $30,000. Another thing that worked very well that we had a few years back, and you guys knew it worked well, was the Elyria City Jail. Mm-hmm. That is a modern jail, and it's still, that was built by people that built jails that knew what they were doing, just like when they built Lorain's. Unfortunately, we got stuck with an architect that really doesn't build jails, but we got what we got, and we understand how that went.
That was kind, Sheriff. That was very kind.
But we used that facility for a while, but as you know, it was understaffed. We tried to do it with 3 corrections officers. It's impossible. Now, we had a hanging over there. You guys remember that. We had a female that ended up hanging herself because we had one person to control them. One was going around making checks in other areas, and unfortunately, we didn't have a visible view to this one that was over there. You know, we didn't know she was a suicide risk at the time, but, and I hate to say this, you know, because there's women in the room here, but the fastest growing population in jails is females. I mean, we're the only jail that holds any females. Any female gets arrested in Lorain County, they come out to the Lorain County Jail because nobody else can hold them unless they're going to bond them out and book them in. But I can tell you, most of the time, the police departments get them, they're arresting them. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but as you know, I sent over a lot of these different things. And
Sheriff, can I back here for a second?
Yes.
We had a great relationship with Elyria. It was a very productive partnership, but we had to end it because we didn't have the approximately $200,000 to properly staff to be able to ensure that we weren't going to have another suicide, another liability to the community. So you hadn't said it, but I want to say we ended that not because it wasn't working, because we couldn't pay for it.
That is correct, because it's a great facility. It's got 54 beds. We had the females over there at one time. To me, it would be a great thing to put, even if you're not going to put females in there, We've talked about it a couple times with Captain Hammond and Andy Lobenthal about making it possibly a booking area where we can book everybody into that facility and then funnel them off to the different courts, and then we can use it as a release. Or we can use it for sentenced inmates. All the sentenced inmates you move over there. That way it frees up our job. But I can tell you, the county jail right now is probably 85% of people awaiting trial.
And Elyria was not charging us to use that. Well, we just had to staff it and pay for the operation.
That is correct. That was kind of like a trade-off for us. It was convenient for them because they could bring their inmates right there. But yeah, they didn't charge us any rent. And all the upkeep on the equipment that was in there, they took care of it. So we just had to actually put the people in there and pay, obviously, for the meals and things of that order. But it's a great jail and it's a great facility. We'd really love to use it again, and I think it would be smart, and because Elyria did not want us to end this partnership.
Yeah,
And,
I know I've heard
the
from
mayor
Chief
did not want
Whiteley, they'd love to work with us again on that, and, always comes down to money.
It comes down to funding again, you're right. Once again, then I talked about a civil office. Our civil office, and it does return money back. They probably return money back to the general fund of about $500,000, every single year on the average. But I have 2 deputies over there that I could use 4 deputies in that office right now. They do all the temporary protection orders and civil protection orders in this county. We have to serve all those. No policemen serve those. We serve them. Just like with secret indictments and public indictments. Any policeman can arrest them, but the sheriff or deputy actually has to serve them. So we serve all those. And as you know, I've told you before, we got 3,000 something warrants in this county right now. I mean, it's cyclical because you have the grand jury that are always re-indicting people, and then we're out serving them. Now, I do have the U.S. Marshals that we work in conjunction serving warrants. I have 2 deputies assigned to that. And it's great because it's a force multiplier for us. But I can tell you, we can use a couple more guys in that. Now, that's another mandated duty. Sure, I don't have a choice of, let's see if we can serve warrants, because there's been some smart attorneys out there. If you don't even try to attempt to serve a warrant, there's a law out there that says if you're not going to try and attempt this, then this guy can probably get off on this because obviously you're not even looking for the person. So you do have to try to attempt service on those things. Another thing, carrying concealed weapons. My record room does all that work, the typists. We've issued since this law was passed, and it really has not been a problem for us. But since 2004, we've issued or renewed over 14,000 carrying concealed weapons licenses. And I know at some point the state legislators, they want to go to Vermont and everybody carries and you don't even have to have a license. I still think there should be record checks on people with mental illnesses. And back to the jail with as far as mental health, I mean, that's another whole issue that you guys know about, that, we have like 18 beds right now for mental health people. And could we use more? Yes. And every sheriff, I can tell you, out of 88 counties, they know that we are the mental health facilities in the state of Ohio right now, because the state has shut most of them down, and that's where we need to put more money in. And I'm not an advocate of building bigger jails. Do we need probably a jail at some point, more modern? Yes. But I'm not saying let's build a 1,000-bed jail, because it's like the old ball field thing. Build it and they will come. If you build it, believe me, they'll cram it full of 1,000 people. That's not the answer. The answer with the drug problems, like they say, is let's get more treatment centers. And where's that start at? With the state. And obviously, they're not really sending a whole lot of money back for anything like that. Getting back to the law enforcement division now, which I still don't say is discretionary. I still say it's, as you guys know, I call it the Vasey rule, which is really a good rule. But it's, with the Judge Weiss come in and he said that, Sheriff, you have to provide the public peace. You have to do that. But you don't have to ferret out crime. You don't have to go out looking for it. But once somebody calls you and says, hey, I got this problem, now you got to answer it. And my question is, how do you do that if you don't have deputies? I mean, I can't lock the jail by myself and go out and answer every call there is. So these deputies are needed to answer calls. And I can tell you, we had over 60,000 calls for service last year just in the townships. And the township people, I know the cities tell me, gee, what do I get from you, Sheriff? I got my own police department. And I said, well, that's a good question. But what you get from the sheriff's office is, number one, you get a jail. You send up most of your inmates out to the jail. You get a lot of things that you don't get. I mean, we got a county SWAT team. We got a county bomb squad. Now, Lorain and Elyria has their own, but we assist each other. There's 15 other police departments. But there's a lot of services that we provide that city folks just don't understand. 550 sexual offenders. I can tell you, they're not out in the townships, most of them. They're in Lorain, Elyria, and in most of the cities. That's where they're at. Where's most of my warrants at? Lorain, Elyria, and the cities. So I tell them, that's what you get for your sales tax dollars from the sheriff's office. And the township people don't use the jail a whole lot. I can tell you, we did a snapshot of the jail a while back. I don't think there was 2% of the people in there from townships. Like 90-something% were from the cities again. And it costs about $83 a day to house an inmate. By the time you're figuring all the costs and everything. And
Yeah,
obviously, you know what, like the chief brought up, with the drug epidemic, I mean, burglaries are up, crimes are up, violent felonies are up. Let's just look at what's going on across the United States. I actually dug one thing out here real quick with police officers. I'm not telling you guys nothing that's not new, but I can tell you just violence against police officers from 2015, firearms-related shootings on policemen, the deaths were 38. This year, it's up to 64. So that's up 68%. Now, obviously, my officers are concerned because they stop at certain areas and they're typing on their mobile data terminals or typing their reports when they're out there. I just told them, you guys got to be aware of your surroundings constantly. And you always got to be looking around. Is it being paranoid? No, but it's a safety conscious thing. And I can tell you that the deaths are way up. It's 113 total in 15. We're up to 137 right now. And it's probably higher than that right now because I can tell you that every 61 hours a police officer's killed now. But you've seen the mood of the country. I can't figure it out sometime myself, but is there a few bad apples that are in law enforcement? Yes. Do we need to weed those guys out? Yes. But I can tell you the majority of the guys that are in this job are in it for the right reason and they want to help people. I could go on with some more stuff, but I don't want to bore you with a bunch of facts and figures. Once again, as you guys know, with vehicles. Well, years ago, and when Sheriff Mahoney was here, you guys had started a program and that you would buy us 8 brand new cruisers every year. As you know, these cars, once again, 24/7. Some of them are used. A deputy gets out, another deputy gets in. He's out going out on patrol and looking for things, answering calls or whatever. So it doesn't take you a couple years before you can get 180 to 200-something thousand plus miles on these cars. Now, I got a mechanic that's an excellent mechanic. The guy really, he will not put a car out there that's unsafe. And if he does, he puts it down. But there was a couple years I didn't get any cars, and that's when we really had an issue. And the county administrator and you guys got creative. I know you did some bonds, but I tell people, well, bonds are nice, but it's like a loan. At some point, you got to pay it back. It's not free money. And as you guys, you've been creative in doing those kind of things, but I need cars like that every single year. I can't say, well, let's not buy any this year and let's do this. As you know, I bought a van for the jail out of my commissary fund. I can't do that every year because the funding is just not there. So this money this is things that we got to have. And as you know, I have 52 total deputies. It sounds like a lot when you think about it, but when you go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where are you putting all these guys? There's 23 of them that actually work out on what we call road patrol in the townships. Then you got a couple guys serving warrants. I got detectives. You got sexual offender people that you got to have. You got civil. When you start splitting all these guys up, one thing we have gotten creative on, you guys pay 2 guys out of the solid waste money. That keeps 2 guys working, and they can assist when they're needed. Ken Carney, the county engineer, he pays for a deputy, and he pays for his vehicle. That pays for the gas and everything. That helps us out. That's with the weight guy. And then we have New Russia Township. They're in a position where, obviously, they bring in a little bit more money because they have the tipping fees. So every township doesn't have that. But we approached them. They said, Sheriff, we'll pay for a full-time deputy for you, and we'll buy you a cruiser for it. The only setback is he's got to stay in New Russia Township, which is fine. But they said, hey, if you get an emergency somewhere else, we'll allow you to go there and assist your other deputies. But that's worked out very well, too.
Sheriff, when you say 23 deputies, how many are actually on the road during a shift?
Yeah, that's total I'm talking. You're right.
Right.
5, 6 guys, you know what I mean? Fat shifts maybe 7, but I can tell you that doesn't happen too often. And one other thing the state's done in their wisdom is they're mandating training. Now, I'm a big proponent of training. Everybody knows that. My staff knows it. I say you can't train enough. And there's some people that, when the budgets get tight, that's the first thing they cut out. To me, that's a liability issue, so that's the last thing you need to be cutting out. But they're mandating now for 2017 that we have to have 20 hours of training for every single deputy. Then they'll tell you what you got to train on. use of force, whatever it is. They'll say these many hours got to be. So I have to take all those 52 deputies that are sworn and put them into a rotation of getting them trained without causing overtime. And believe me, that's a monumental task to try to get these guys. Now, they give you $20 per hour, but I can tell you that don't pay for much coming back that way. But, I didn't know what my budget was. I still don't have it. And, but I heard the rumors originally. I thought it was 15% cut. Then when I heard yesterday, it's 20%. I can tell you, you're asking for 1/5 of my general fund budget, which will devastate me. I've not recovered from the cuts in 2009, as you guys know. I've never recovered back. We used to have 250-something employees. We have a total of 237 now. And probably about 12 or 13 of those are what we call intermittent. And what that means is I just pay them like an hourly rate, no benefits. They help me in the jail because they help me in the courts because they make my trips to Chillicothe, Orient, the couple guys that do it because you pay them an hourly rate. Now what I'm going to have to do is they get laid off first, and then I'm going to have to take my full-time guys and move them into those positions, which is even going to short us even more.
For the record, you don't have a choice in that matter because that's mandated by your collective bargaining agreements in those bumping situations.
Yep,
So if people are going to go, well, why would you do that? That sounds spiteful. It's not spiteful.
No,
you don't
it's
have
not.
a choice.
No, you're right, because you can lay off full-time people and save money and say, I'm just gonna pay you an hourly rate here, but you're right, there's collective bargaining agreements that and I understand why they put those kind of things in there, because, they wanna keep a full-time job too, because, the last 10 or 12 deputies I've hired, I can tell you too, we've gotten some excellent officers, and now I gotta go back and tell them, and, hey, guess what, you're getting laid off now, and I can't really tell you when I'm bringing you back to work. Do you think they're gonna sit there? No, I'm gonna lose these guys to Avon, Elyria, they passed some tax levy here a little while ago. They're going to take whatever they did. They have a lateral transfer type thing. We're going to lose some great officers. And it takes me a good 3 months to do a background investigation on one deputy. Because by the time you run them through the psychological, physical, all the checks that you have to do on them. And believe me, you need to do these checks. I understand all that. But it's not something you would say, poof, you're hired. And then you got training costs. Then you got uniform costs. It's probably costing the county $3,000 to $4,000 just to bring in a new guy on the first day. I got to buy him a vest. I got to get him a gun, and then we got to put him in an FTO for 6 to 8 months. There's costs to all that. Now you lose that, so do you start over again? I mean, it's a hard thing to come back from. And like I say, we've never come back from the cuts that we had in 2009, as you guys know. I'm not telling you nothing. And there is mandated duties, and as Jim knows, we've had this, not an argument, but discussion, healthy discussions about the Justice Center. Now, the Supreme Court come out and did a study. One of their officers, they sent him here because the judges requested it. And they have recommended that I'm supposed to have 17 deputies in that Justice Center. I have 7. The other 2, as you know, are in the gas building, and then the other 2 are in the old courthouse. So we have 11 total officers over there. I can tell you, they are pulled constantly. We run 50 to 60 inmates from that jail every day to all the different courts over in the county. Sometimes it's even more. That's a monumental task. These 10 go to this judge. These 10 go to this one. So
And that's a mandated function.
that is a mandated function.
The sheriff's required to provide courthouse security, and that's something you have no discretion over.
So I can, as you guys know it yourself, sometimes there may be only 2 deputies in that building at one time. Now, if we have something happening there, that's not a good ratio.
Sheriff, aren't we having a bit of a problem down with the lockup down in the basement down there? Did I hear there was some problems with locks or the way it was set up for the inmates down there?
Actually, I haven't heard that one, Jim. They haven't told me that one. But
They had some problems with the locking mechanisms themselves.
That's what I thought, and we need to do some work on that too. It's, okay.
And as you know, that Justice Center was open in 2001, so.
4.
4? I'm sorry, okay, yeah, but it's getting older too, and then I know the cameras, we need to add certain things in there, and I know the judges have been on you for certain things. I won't go on anymore, but I can tell you that something has to be done in this county, and I know people, hey, believe me, I'm the first guy, I don't want to pay any more taxes either, but I think a sales tax is the fairest tax, even for an elderly person. I'm not a young guy myself anymore, and I'm not out there, as long as it's not on my property and I'm on a fixed income, I'm not paying any more that way. And usually when you get up in your 60s and 70s, you're pretty well set on your big ticket items that you're gonna buy. You may buy a car once in a while. It's not on medical, and it's not on food. So I think that is the fairest way to try to do this, but we cannot have these kind of cuts. I mean, it's a quality of life issue here in Lorain County. There's no, and my deputy's own safety. Now, we're gonna put 4 or 5 guys out there, and what am I gonna tell them? Guess what? You don't have any backup. We call the cities once in a while, we border up against them, just like they call us. But once again, we're opening a liability can of worms up here. One of these guys gets hurt, I think they got a good argument. But and I'm not, you know me, I don't come over here and try to threaten you guys or anything else. But I guess what I would have to do if you're going to institute those type of cuts, I really have to seriously sit down and say, okay, what is my mandated duties? And I'm short in some areas, so I may have to pick up certain areas that are mandated. And I guess if we get into a battle where and I don't like doing this because I didn't do it on the last thing about you guys having to hire an attorney for me. So let's pay attorneys a bunch of big money so we can sit here and try to fight with each other. I don't want to do that. If I'm backed into a corner, I guess I may have to, but I'll get off my soapbox and I'm done. But I can tell you, we cannot take these type of cuts. And in the jail, I obviously would have to fight you on everything with that. So it's needed in this county, as you guys know it. And I hate to liken it this way, but I think it's the best way. And I know, like you say, even if you institute a half, I don't know what you got on the agenda. We're still going to only be at 7%.
We're just in discussions. There's nothing on the agenda.
Okay, and I know that. I heard quarter. I don't know exactly where we're at, but as you know, that would still only put us in a range with. Right now, I have the figures here. 7%. There's only 13 counties in that category. In 7.25, there's 50. And obviously, we're in the bottom 4 at 6.5, and then there's 19 at 6 3/4. And Cuyahoga is the highest at 8%. And there's one of counties at 7.50. But like you bring up, I've talked to people about this too, and they think, hey, God, 6.5%, why can't you survive on that? Well, we don't get that. And as you know, and do I blame Governor Kasich? Every chance I get. Because I think they do a terrible job down there. And I can tell you, I don't care what party you're from. I got a lot of Republican sheriff friends, and they feel the exact same way about him. Because the money is not coming back here that should be, and then we wouldn't have to be in these situations where we're fighting to try to put on taxes. The schools are fighting for funding. And as you know, you always got that one guy out there that goes, why don't you collect all this delinquent tax, county? You got all this money out there. Well, like you say, the treasurer's not here today, but I know Oh, he is?
He just left.
But I know that money mostly probably would go back to the schools, as you
Right.
guys know it.
Right.
I think you said like every $1,000, the county may get $1.26, something like that. You probably got better figures than me, but
The
I
big,
mean-
the big issue with Kasich, and I keep saying it, and nobody seems to remember, he increased the sales tax by 0.25% while he's been in office. Not one person's, and all that money stays in Columbus, doesn't come back to us at all. And nobody said a word. Nobody complained. Nobody said, how can he do this? Nothing. There was no discussion. He raised it and nothing was said. And on top of that, he's keeping our local government funds.
It's been raised 0.75% in the last 12 years.
Right.
And
But
I
they
totally
did roll
agree.
back a quarter when they promised us they'd roll back a half.
Well, they passed 1% for 2 years, and they said
No.
that was 2 years only, and at the end of 2
Yeah, they
years,
rolled
they
back
just
to
decided they
half.
would keep half
Right, so we went
and
from
only
5.
keep
Yep.
their promise on half.
And Commissioner Lundy knows I've had this conversation with him. I have nothing against the state, and I have nothing against the Ohio State Patrol. They are a fine organization. The problem I have is they got all the money they want.
You
They
bet.
get the best equipment. They get the best of everything.
How many have they increased?
And they're pretty much traffic accident oriented, where our officers handle everything. We handle traffic accidents too, but we handle domestics, we handle this, they handle none of that. So the money needs to come back to the locals who are doing the job here, like they say, where the rubber meets the road.
Some
And all
guys
the-
in Columbus have
and all-
forgotten local government.
Yep.
They've forgotten about our services we have to provide.
And while they're sitting on $2 billion surplus. And we had some conversation yesterday, somebody was saying, well, you guys said you have a $5 million carryover, but you're short $2 million. I don't understand. That $5 million is not extra money. It's not a rainy day fund like the governor has the $2 billion rainy day fund. This is money that's part of our operating budget, and we can't open the county next year without a carryover.
Right.
And that carryover's been shrinking year after year after year. We have to have that.
And as you guys know,
It's part
we're
of
all
our
con-
budget. It's
We're
not
all
a rainy day
connected in
fund.
this county. All the departments that are here are connected, because I've even had a couple of my deputies come to me and go, gee, Sheriff, why don't they lay off more people in the treasurer and the auditor? And I said, well, they can do that to keep your job, but the problem is when you don't get a paycheck and you don't have any gas for your vehicle and you don't have any parts for it, everything's breaking down here. So we're all intertwined
Yeah.
together, we're all
It's a
connected.
body.
Yep.
It's a body.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Sheriff. Prosecutor Will, did you want to? Yeah, I got tag teamed yesterday. The prosecutor and the sheriff came in at the same time. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Lorain County Prosecutor Dennis Will. As Mr. Lundy has alluded to a couple of times, we paid him a visit yesterday. This is not, to me, even a close call, okay? I mean, we've been dealing with this since 2008, okay? I've never recovered from the cuts that were implemented in 2008, just like the sheriff. I have less people to do the functions I'm required to do and that we have undertaken. There have been changes mandated by the state and in the laws, okay, that have given us additional jobs to do, additional responsibilities, additional legal tasks, okay? Right now, my budget for this past year was $2,500,000. That's from the general fund for salaries. And the majority of my money goes to salaries. We're a labor-intensive business. I got to have attorneys, just like you have Mr. Ennis over here every week. I have to have attorneys and the people that support them to perform that legal function. The budget we had in 2005 when I started was $4,000 more than I had last year, okay? If you cut me 20%, that will put me at approximately $2 million. That's 1990s levels. 2001, the salary budget or the general fund budget for the prosecutor's office when I wasn't there was $2,196,000, okay? So if you go down to $2 million, all right, we're gonna be down into the 1990s levels. Here's what you get for that. Not a lot, and you're gonna have to tell me, where do you want me to bring the people that I can't prosecute, the individuals that killed their sons or daughters? Because this heroin epidemic has driven up everything, okay? The letter that Mr. Corey and I had just finished this morning, okay, we have 32 homicides pending for 37 defendants. Last weekend in Lorain, 2 more homicides. You have a double homicide in Elyria that's been unsolved yet. You have a homicide at Taco Bell in Lorain that's been unsolved. It just keeps coming, okay? If there was something I could do, I would. I've tried to work with you for the last, 7, 8 years, and I don't have a problem with that. I understand we all have responsibilities. I understand, as the sheriff said, nobody wants to pay more taxes. Unfortunately, I don't think they understand. You're right. When the state implemented the 1/4%, nobody said nothing, okay? We don't get anything back from K-6's, $2 billion rainy day fund down there, except I get more responsibility and more jobs. They changed the discovery process. We've been fighting with that since 2010. We need a computer to deal with that, which would be more efficient, less labor intensive, okay? We can't get that. We don't have the money for it. They keep changing the forfeiture laws. We used to be able to fund some things by the money we took away from the bad guys, all right? They just changed that recently again in Columbus, okay? So some of the things that people were accustomed to us being able to do are not there anymore. The property taxes, Mr. Telerik had to leave, but he told me, for every $100 in delinquent property taxes we collect, the county gets $1.63. The rest of them go to the schools, the other municipalities, the other townships, the other entities, okay? We've collected $9 million since we started that 18 months ago. So all these people that are sending letters in and beating you guys up and beating us up, okay? $9 million. We're very aggressive in doing that. I have a guy in my office and 2 people work with him through the land bank in cooperation with you guys. We've gone out there and got it, but we don't get that. They don't understand it doesn't come to the county government.
They don't understand sometimes we have to spend some of that money, so it's not all pure profit.
No, absolutely not. No, and they're very efficient, okay, in working with the land bank and with our people. But you're right, it is. You don't do it if you don't have the bodies, all right? Bottom line here is trust me, this isn't going to turn out bad. It's going to turn out catastrophically bad if you cut this budget, okay? I realize people don't want taxes. I realize it's a burden to you. It's a burden to you politically. But I got news for you, All of us took this job because we wanted to improve our county, I hope. Democratic process and representative government requires us to make changes for the good of society. I know they don't want this. I know that the sheriff and I have fronted the last two tax levies, okay, to try to get them passed, explain to them where they're going. This is necessary. There's no question here. If somebody thinks they're hiding money somewhere, they're wrong, okay? And I'm tired of hearing that, but I can tell you this. I don't know what people want me to do when I can't prosecute these people. I talk to families every week. The heroin epidemic, every one of those people that dies, that's a possible homicide because somebody has poisoned them, okay, and they've died. If they got run over by a car, they'd want me to do something about it. And trust me, the families that are losing these people, they want something done about it. Every overdose has to be investigated as a homicide. What do you think that does to their burden out there on the street and all the other police departments? Secondly, you know, with all due respect with the sheriff's department, we're interlocking, we work together. If they can't operate the jail, okay, that's going to be catastrophic. Just think back when Elyria eliminated their jail. We were transporting people to Seneca County to house them, okay? They eventually built the jail with the police levy because I'm telling you, there's no good side to that. When Lorain eliminated their jail, what happened? Big problems. It's going to be problems for them. It's going to be problems for us. It's going to be problems for the system. Nothing good's going to come out of that. People say, well, you don't need the jail. Yeah, you do. Road patrol? There's no way you can abolish the road patrol. They're one of the three biggest entities in the county, okay? They're all interlocking. They work with Elyria, they work with Lorain, they work with all the other cities. We're not going to survive that. I mean, this is going to be bad. I mean, you have to sound the alarm. Because there's nowhere I can cut 20% out of my budget and do what I'm supposed to do. You know, I told you the last time when I talked to some of you in the summertime, we saw each other at different functions. You tell me where you want me to bring the bodies, and I'll let you account for it. Just like Dr. Evans says, you know, what do you want me to do? I can't even perform autopsies. There's no question here. I mean, I just don't know what else you're going to do. This has to be enacted, and this money's got to come from somewhere, and the only place you can get it is the sales tax. So I'm telling you, if this goes the other direction, and the sheriff's right, you know, then I'm going to have to sit down and figure out what I got to do. And all that is wasteful because we're going to end up doing battle. So I'll answer any questions you have. I'll give you any figures you want.
How many employees do you think that would interpret if you had to cut a 20% budget?
Well, it's probably going to be 6 or 7 attorneys, okay? I just lost 5 attorneys, okay? 3 of them went to the court system because the court system can pay them more money than me. I'm not against people bettering themselves. 1 of them got recruited away from Ashland County. They paid him more money, offered him a better job, okay? And 1 of them was for other reasons. I tried to recruit some people to fill those spots. I got outbid by Medina, okay?
Little old Ashton County is stealing our prosecutors.
They are. I got news for you. There's more than Ashland County coming up here trying to steal them. And it's the same thing the sheriff said. We spend time, money, and resources to train these people. You know, and you don't get proficient at trying a major trial case in a couple of weeks. It takes years. Well, then people will come and recruit them away. You know, and I mean, what are you going to do? It's like he said, you're going to spend time and money to train people, and they're going to go somewhere else. So there's a downside to that. That's a bad budgetary process.
And what does that mean for you trying to cover the courts?
I won't be able to cover the courts. We did last time. The courts didn't cut their budget, okay? And they didn't cut the people that were working there, okay? We did. And a lot of what my people did, a lot of the attorneys, okay, and a lot of the support people took a 20%, somewhere between 50 and 20%, maybe it was as low as 13 at times, took a cut in pay. They were supposed to not work then that same amount of time, 13% cut in the work hours. They didn't do that. They worked after hours. They did what they had to do to cover the courts, and we barely survived. We were very far behind when we finally got people back to a 40-hour work week, you know. And we're not going to be able to survive this. We're not going to be able to man the courts.
And your staffing levels have not changed since 2009.
We lost 3 people. We lost 3 attorneys, 2 investigators, and 2 secretaries, which we've never gotten back. And right now, I'm down 2 people right away in the criminal division. We're scrambling to cover things there. Now we have 37 defendants and 32 homicide cases pending right now that are scheduled. We're scheduling all the way up into next year to try cases, okay? You just can't, you can't manufacture somebody a la wah, you know, and here they go, put them in the courtroom. You got a plan for these things. I can tell you right now, there's no way I can survive. It's not going to happen. So I'm not coming here crying wolf. You know, I fought the good fight for 8 years. We've talked about this. They said this crisis would be over in 2015. Well, it's 2016, and I ain't seen no relief coming from anybody. Nobody's coming to save us, okay? The only people who can save us is you, you know? And we'll work with you, but we have to have revenue to be able to bring the resources to bear on these things.
And Dennis, you probably heard through the Prosecutor Association, I'm sure, much like I'm hearing out of Columbus, and the governor went public the other week saying that a recession's on the way for Ohio, which he bragged about all the tax cuts especially for the wealthy, and how that was all going to supposedly trickle down and stimulate the economy. We were going to have all kinds of job growth. Now he's talking about a recession. My contacts in Columbus are telling me you better look out, because they're going to come from more of your local government funds.
I have heard, and it's from a pretty reliable source, because Dave Yost, who's the state auditor, used to be a Delaware County prosecutor. So we have a lot of interlocking, business doing our jobs with a lot of people down there. I've been told that they're going to cut local government again. John Murphy, who's our executive director, he hears rumors around the State House. Biggest thing is I agree with the sheriff. I've got people on both sides of the political fence, okay? And what do I talk about with Governor Kasich? Every chance I get, I tell people we're getting screwed, okay? We're not getting any help from them. And the other people are in the same boat, whether they're Democratic or Republican, they're in the same boat. Mm-hmm. And there's bigger counties that are hurting just like us, but they all have more sales tax than us, okay? And they're talking about there's going to be a recession. I don't know if there's going to be a recession or not. They got $2 billion sitting down there, and somebody needs to do something to help us. I mean, you're going to keep cutting local government funds? My God, we'll bleed to death. So.
Not much more to go. They're almost taking it all already.
We're down to the bone now.
Right.
And you did point out the high number of overdoses that we're seeing, that those loved ones are demanding that they want to know who sold their loved one the drugs and who's behind basically their death.
I don't know if you saw it in the paper today. They listed the number of overdoses last month in Cuyahoga County, and I think it was 43. They're predicting they're going to be over 200% for the year. Well, I haven't talked to Dr. Evans recently, but I know that when we were having those town hall meetings, he was projecting it was going to go through the ceiling, at least that amount. And you're right. But we don't even know about some of the overdoses, They don't get reported to us. And I hear from them. I hear from the families later, that when their child or their relative gets into some type of treatment program, they say, "What are you doing about it?" Everybody wants us to go out there and get the dealers off the street, okay? But we have limited resources. The Elyria eliminated their narcotics unit a couple years ago for budgetary reasons. They brought it back.
They sure did.
And then they had to put extra people in there. The task force has never slowed down, at the sheriff's department. And all these road guys, I mean, all you got to do is open the paper any day. I was a policeman, for 27 years. They're facing stuff we never thought about. Every day somebody's getting shot, I mean, the aggressiveness towards law enforcement is something we've never seen, at least not in my career. And you've got to address that, and sticking people out on the road with no support, that's not the answer. So.
And you know better than we do. A lot of people think the criminal element is just in the bigger cities in our county, but the bottom line is when people are looking for drug money, they're going everywhere to find it.
Trust me, after they've stolen everything they can in Lorain and Elyria, then they're coming to Avon Lake, North Ridgeville. I mean, look at the number of break-ins of cars that you see, even when you read the blotters in the smaller newspapers, okay? They're going to steal wherever they can. And drugs aren't just in the cities, in the inner cities, like they used to talk about back in the 60s. It's everywhere. I mean, and if you think you're not going to be touched by this, then you just haven't been touched yet. So.
It's a matter of time.
Yep. I'll answer any questions you have. I think we gave you another letter today with a lot of our documentation. I'm sure you're pretty familiar with that because we've been sending it over here for 8 years.
At least you update the date on it.
Yes, we are. As we did with Mr. Lundy yesterday.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't
Good.
think he wanted it, but we gave it to him anyway.
You gave it to
Done
me
a good
pretty
job,
good.
Dennis. I mean,
Yeah.
it's time we have done this over and over and over.
And look, I'll tell you something, the sheriff and I have talked about this. People want to blame somebody, then they should collectively blame all of us, okay? Because we're doing our job, all right? And like the sheriff, he doesn't have the money to do what he's supposed to do, and I don't have the money what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what you want me to do. So, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, since we're on this topic right now, there are others wishing to comment? Yes, sir. And, okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Dave Lottman. I am president of Lorain County Deputies Association. And I just wanted to discuss with you some of the thoughts that we had on the sheriff's budget. And I understand that your job is to balance the budget with whatever money that you have. And it's not a job that I would want trying to pick which office gets what cuts and which don't. Yesterday, Sheriff Stammitti and his command staff informed me and Vice President Mark Bungard that his 2017 budget was going to probably be cut by 20%. And rough math, not knowing exactly what the budget would be, we figured it to be about 10 to 12 deputies out of what we have. Some of the stuff that I've written down, the sheriff, I think he was looking over my shoulder because he kind of covered a lot of it that I had. But I don't think that everyone knows what the entire sheriff office does. I know that most people think that we're just out in the townships, which we are, but we are so much more than that. And most people don't realize that we only have 52 deputies to do all the jobs that we're mandated to do or that we do. And I gathered some of the same stats that the sheriff gathered, and just so people know that we do respond approximately 60,000 calls for service to an area that has 63,000 residents, and that's almost one call per, which I don't think the cities have the same ratio as we do. Throughout the year, we average approximately 400 prisoner transports to other institutions inside the state and even to surrounding states that have to be done. We maintain the security of the Justice Center and the surrounding county buildings. We serve approximately 1,500 warrants a year, and currently we still have 3,100 active warrants that need to be at least attempted or served. Our Detective Bureau handles approximately 400 criminal investigations a year with just 4 detectives. We monitor the sex offenders, like the sheriff put, around 560, and 412 of them are in the cities. They're not even in the townships. We serve all civil paperwork from the courts. The totals I don't know. We're involved in Project Dawn, and we're instrumental in Project Lifesaver. And like I said, this is not all in the townships. 90% of the jails, the sheriff said, are from the cities of Larry and Lorain. But once they're in the jail, if they're under county or state charges, we have to transport them. Most of our warrants that we serve that come from common pleas, them are from cities as well. But we are the only ones that can serve them. All domestic violence by state law has to be investigated, whether it be a dispute or violence. And that's everywhere throughout the county. However, if a protection order is issued, we're the only ones that can go serve them. And what people don't realize is some of them are not just going to their house, knocking on the door and serving them with a piece of paper. The judges will instruct us to take certain properties from them, which could be guns, weapons, car keys, stuff like that. I have been on service of some of these TPOs to where we had to call maintenance out with the pickup truck because the person being served had that many guns, and we're responsible for securing them until the outcome of the case. These are just some of the duties that are performed yearly by just 52 deputies. I was here the last time that Sheriff Stammitti had to lay off deputies, and I can tell you we never did fully recover from that. So if the sheriff lays off again, we're going to be even more short-handed than we were last time. And the last time that that's happened, we worked with 2 deputies a shift and a sergeant. To date, as the sheriff has said, Chief Deputy Kavanaugh has said, there's been 106 deaths due to overdose this year, and we're experiencing an epidemic in this county. But I wanted to talk to you about the lives that are saved because we're out there. We don't have a number of how many people that we have administered Narcan to because we are the first responders on scene. But I can tell you that I'm with confidence that we've saved lives out there. And the epidemic so bad, just last week on day shift, we had calls for service for 3 overdoses within an hour-and-a-half period. In fact, one was coming in while we still had units on another one. I know there are people that don't care what happens to a person that overdosed on drugs, but that person, like the sheriff said, is somebody's family member. I've had experience with family members that have succumbed to the addiction. I understand that there are other offices in this county that are going to receive cuts, and they could lose employees as well. But to me, you cannot compare apples to oranges. There's a big difference between our day at work and other county employees' day at work. Not that they don't experience difficulties, but the dangers are definitely greater for us. We are living in times where law enforcement officers are getting ambushed and killed. These killings are up 167%, and they're at a 10-year high. Ohio is currently 8th in the nation for officer fatalities this year. It is putting us in dangerous situations every day if we were to lose just one deputy, let alone 10 to 12. Not to mention the citizens of Lorain County who depend on us to be there and to perform our job. As happened during the last layoff, all areas of crime will rise, along with an increase in response time from the deputies that are working and the potential for violence. And as I said before when we went through it, criminals can read. This will be in the papers. They'll read that we're down, and we're going to get hit even harder. We're asking for your support with the budget. You have the power to ensure that no one has to suffer any loss of services, plus that we can work safer. We'd like you to consider what we have put to you and enact a sales tax increase. If you do, as Union President, I promise you we will help you in any way to keep it where it's at. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and just want to thank you for the job you do and your members. And the thing I've always struggled with is, as you just pointed out, you said 60,000 calls for service with about 63,000 residents that you serve in the township area. And, you know, every time that a question is put before the voters, it goes down overwhelmingly in the townships. And I've never been able to figure that out. It's, you know, the recent sales tax, it was almost, I guess you could say almost 5 to 1, it seems like. Close to 30,000 against, with a little over 6,600 in favor. And then you may remember well, I worked on the initiative. A number of people in this room worked on the initiative concerning the police district for the townships.
Correct.
And that one was even defeated 55 to 44, or 55 to 45. And that was money that specifically was going to, you know, to the township area. It wasn't involving, you know, the cities or anything else like that weighing in on the decision. And so, you know, I just had this conversation with the sheriff yesterday. I think every opportunity we get to have a conversation with residents, and I'm sure you have these conversations, you're always telling them about, hey, you know, if you need something else, we're always here. Here's where you can reach us.
Correct.
Now, I think there needs to be a little bit of a conversation about, hey, you know, we need resources to come to your door when you need help, and, you know, we hope in the future you'll you know, try to be, you know, more supportive so that we do have the resources that are needed. But I've always had a tough time trying to figure that one out.
Me too, and I wouldn't begin to speculate why
Right.
it doesn't pass.
Right.
But like I said, I mean, if this goes forward, all three commissioners and Mr. Cortez are more than welcome to reach out to me over at the sheriff's office or my vice president, Mark Bungard. We pretty much cover day shift and afternoon shift, so one of us is usually there, and be more than welcome to sit down with any one of you to work together on this. We have several members here on their own time that showed up because of how important this is to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. It's still morning, I think.
Yeah, good morning. I don't get here very often. In fact, this is the first time I've ever been in this room.
There's etiquette. You need to introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, yeah. My name's Anthony Giardini. I'm from Lorain, Ohio. Let's get this right out of the way. I'm chairman of the County Democratic Party, but I'm not here on behalf of our party. And everybody knows all three of you are Democrats, and I'm proud of that fact. But I will say this. You've not done a good job of educating the general public about the needs that the county has to increase its revenue. I didn't know until one of you told me the other day that the state sales tax had been increased just recently under Governor Kasich. I just paid it. I didn't notice it, and I consume more, I think, than the average person. Currently, last year I paid more in city income tax than I paid in state income tax. You know why? Because the Republicans down in Columbus lowered my income tax. I didn't realize is they increased my sales tax, and then they took a bunch of our money away from us in local funds, kept it down there in Columbus. Meanwhile, you guys and the folks in Cuyahoga County and all these other school districts have had to increase taxes, and generally speaking, that can only happen by a vote of the people. We're always expected to do the responsible thing. And when I say we, I genuinely mean our party, because the County Democratic Party endorsed the sales tax. I personally voted for it. And I know if you look at the vote in the cities, it lost, but it lost by a much closer margin than it did in the townships. It lost by 5-1 in the townships. It lost about 2-1, I think, in Lorain and Elyria. But remember also, those are the two poorest communities in the county. The average per capita income in Lorain, and yet we tax ourselves heavily. We tax ourselves for our fire, we passed the fire levy just this past election. We got a police levy that we passed. We pay for our law enforcement. And apparently some folks in this county don't want to. And I know what's going to happen. You should do the responsible thing. But it always seems like you have to do the responsible thing, and then, with all due respect to some of the people in this room, they don't support you when that happens. In other words, they want you to do the responsible thing, but coming to support you when you do the responsible thing is not so. No, we're the tax and spend party. That's how we're always referred to. Meanwhile, everyone else enjoys the benefits of that. And that's crazy. I know I've talked to all three of you about your attitudes about this sales tax. And I understand Commissioner Lundy's position and things that you campaigned on. But the fact of the matter is, I think the three of you realize the responsible thing is to increase the revenue, and if the only option they leave you is a sales tax, then that's it. Okay? But I have a real problem with that, a serious problem with that. And I know that this issue, no matter how you vote on it, is going to be turned into some political issue later on, and people will use it to change our form of government, take away our elected recorder, take away our elected engineer, take away our elected clerk of courts, have an appointed administrator who will be able to appoint all these commissions and boards and everything like that, like a king they will have, and that's what they will play off of. And then I wonder how many people in this room and the people they represent will come out and support that. That's what bothers me, is that every time we do the responsible thing, we pay for it. And you can go right back to when Dick Celeste was governor and a Democrat legislature increased the income tax because this state needed it. And then next time through, they all got voted out, big time. And it has stayed the same way ever since then. Nothing has changed. We have an opioid epidemic. 400 people have died in Cuyahoga County already this year, 43 last month. I don't know what it is in Lorain County. And these guys are sitting on $2 billion in Columbus, not releasing any of it to the sheriff or to the prosecutor or to drug treatment programs. No, sitting on $2 billion. And they expect us to increase our sales tax again after they've increased it themselves for themselves. Now, it's about time that our local newspapers and other folks quit talking about the BS stuff and start talking about the substantive stuff. And it's not what the three of you did or what a campaign promise was or any of that nonsense. It's that. $2 billion is sitting down in Columbus, and we have probably 40 or 50 or 60 people who will die this year from drug overdoses. Just one item.
$1.25, Tony, is what we're looking at, to 140.
I'm only 60 off.
Right.
Yeah.
60 was last year's number.
was last year, double this year. Now, we had that many murders, people would be going insane. I think like Dennis Wills said, if we had people get hit by cars, people would be going nuts. If we had that many people die in car accidents that were intended. And yet we just put up with it. So I don't know what you're going to do. I know you might reconsider things. They've made obviously a good argument for it. All I say is, if you vote for it and you impose it, then in my view, people in this room and the people they represent need to completely, unequivocally support you going forward. And I don't mean just you personally. I mean support what you stand for, which I see very little of. And this last election said a lot to me. I look at the numbers too, and I look at the blue areas and the red areas of this county. Can't have your cake and eat it too. Can't have your cake and eat it too. 60,000 calls in the townships, and nearly 30,000 so half of the township residents voted no on the sales tax. Tells you all you need to know. Thank you. You can either do the responsible thing, which would be to vote to increase the sales tax, or continue to do the irresponsible thing like they do down in Columbus. I just hope it gets reported that way.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir.
Morning, Tom.
Hey, Tom. Back again. Good to see you. Good morning.
He's become an activist
Yeah.
this past year and a half. Talked to the president, Hillary Clinton.
I can
become
stay
an
up here for a
activist.
long time right now, really. My name's Tom Kelling from Lorain. I guess I'm one of the kind of uneducated about county government. That's why I'm here, trying to learn a little bit more. I didn't know that the county ran strictly off of just a sales tax. I thought it had property taxes mixed in there,
We
things
do.
like that and stuff. Just a small portion.
Well, there's some property taxes, there's some fees, there's local government funds. We still have some of those. We get some casino revenue. Never came in the way it was supposed to when they did away with the
Sales tax is about a third of our revenue.
Okay, well, reason I'm here, and you guys don't know why I'm up here, is everyone's talking raise tax, raise tax, raise tax. But when people spend money, that tax is going to you guys. That's where you make your money or helps. Why aren't we focusing on jobs? You know why I'm here. I just got laid off again.
Simple, Tom. I talk
I'm laid
this
off
all
from
the
U.S.
time.
Steel again.
Here you go. Let me give you, for example, it's been talked out of, we're the 9th largest county in the state of Ohio. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay. There's 88 counties. We're in the bottom 4 of collection of sales tax. When you don't pay for anything, you don't get anything.
Right.
So we're not collecting much sales tax to meet all of our needs. You sat here and heard the prosecutor and the sheriff and everybody else who wants to talk, and we got an army full of corrections personnel and deputies out here because we don't have anything. The sheriff told you we haven't been buying in vehicles. Things break down. Without any money, you can't do anything. Why do you think it's all bright and shiny if you go to Cuyahoga County? They got an 8% sales tax. Okay, they can afford to invest money. I had friends of mine in Erie County who increased the sales tax to put in all of the services down Route 250. You know what you got? Kalahari and everything going north. That's when you're treating your citizenry right, your constituents, when you have the ability to have some dollars to do something. We can't do anything with job development. If this 20% cut goes through, we don't improve this, we'll be lucky to have one economic development specialist at the county level. And you know we're already working on stuff in Lorain. You read that in the paper of things we do, and you and I have had discussions.
Yes.
Okay? We work on that throughout the county. Without our people here working, and the few we have, that we pay $37,000 a year, who walk in here with bachelors and masters and learn and leave us 2 years later because people pay them real money, nothing will get done. So it would be wonderful to talk about what we could do in regards to jobs, training. We just missed out on a $400,000 grant for technology training, for possible employees, economic development. Problem was we didn't have the $400,000 to match it.
I see.
Would have been $800,000 in training. You and I have multiple discussions in regards to workforce development, the issues you had with the state.
Yes.
Okay, because I lodged my complaints. The administrator can tell you that.
I appreciate that.
Okay. but without any dollars, we can't do anything. So we can talk about a whole lot of things, but there's nobody moving into our neighborhoods in Lorain, where we live at, if we don't have any safety forces there.
Oh, I understand. I'm not
Okay.
disagreeing
So,
with you at
It's
all.
a component, but currently we are under such duress because we have not recovered from the recession of 08, 09. Nothing's gotten extremely better around here, and you've been a steelworker a long time. We've been set back because of our manufacturing being held back, so there's no income tax. So guys aren't making money, so they're not spending it, so we're not getting an uptick in our sales tax.
Right, I mean, that's my point.
This is a
that-
quarter
but-
on $100 expenditure.
You know, when people are laid off at the steel plant, they obviously have a tough time, you know, making the mortgage, the car payment, utilities, all those
Right.
things, taking care of their families. You know, people talk to me all the time about need to retain the jobs or grow the jobs, you know, especially retaining the jobs. And then in the same breath, they're like, well, I guess you guys will just have to make cuts so that, you know, whatever, 12 members of the sheriff's department and other members of the prosecutor's office, you know, they got mortgages to pay and they put money into the local economy too. So you can't tell me in one breath that you want to keep jobs and then in the same breath tell me to cut jobs. It makes no sense.
Oh, no, I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
And I'm not arguing with you, I'm just pointing out.
Well, no, true. My point is like, I'll use myself. U.S. Steel, 600 people there in 2015, or 15. They're down to 200 right now. We don't know what's going on there. It's
You know, we
it's
did-
good and it's not good in that area. REP is totally down. There's 4 people working there.
We
You
did
just
not-
lost the Super K.
We
You know,
did
hopefully
90
Myers is coming in 3 years or whatever. That's good. And I know you're saying, you know, we need people, you need to hire people or have people pay them to find us or development, you know, for development of jobs. Do we need that? I mean, you three right here, why can't, as you three, go and find these jobs? Why aren't we in, I'll use U.S. Steel again, why aren't we in Pittsburgh? The reason I'm here is I was hoping to talk to you after the meeting for a minute. Why aren't we in Pittsburgh now talking to U.S. Steel to find out what we need to do to get U.S. Steel running again?
We know the gas
You know, I
prices
mean,
have
things
to
like
go up,
that.
Tom. We were here, this board of
It's just not
commissioners-
gas prices.
this board
I mean,
of
there's-
commissioners- No, let me finish. You asked a question.
Okay.
Okay. This board of commissioners, predating Commissioner Lundy, and he was at the state level, we garnered over $75 million in money for U.S. Steel to retool all their stuff. That's what government does, okay?
Okay, yeah.
We cobbled it together, multiple rounds. I think Don was here at the time also.
Wasn't it closer to 90 million?
That was a little bit over 75.
We ended at 90.
Okay, 90 million to help U.S. Steel retool for their
Yes.
new market they were changing this plant into. And you worked there, I'm not in there, I haven't been in
No,
that
and
plant.
they
as an
did all that,
employee,
and it's there, it's sitting there
Right.
to be used,
There's
you know,
no
but
market to sell the product to currently.
the market's coming.
I'm
You
not
know,
arguing the
I mean-
market's coming, I believe the market's going to come back. I mean, right now, the stock market's going through the roof because of energy stocks.
Right.
Oil's going through the roof, so I believe it's going to restart. REP, you and I both know it's been issues ever since it was bought out. I remember back in '01 when they went bankrupt on my floor covering business and the turnover and opened up the next day and said, hey, want to do business, we'll pay you with a
Yeah.
credit card. So I've been through those things personally. I don't know what's ever gonna happen with REP, but I believe US Steel's coming back. They're not going to close down, but there has to be some economics and some dynamics worldwide that are gonna get them going back there. The Lorain County Board of Commissioners are not gonna be able to tell US Steel, you have to reopen if they have nobody to sell their product to.
I'm not saying, you know, you can't tell them, but is there a way to negotiate with them, see if there's some kind of incentive anywhere that could do something? And with other businesses too, you know, I don't know many right offhand right now. I mean, the Super K that closed, I was like, great, there's another building that's gonna sit there. Fortunately, Myers looks like they wanna buy that land, you know, and build, so that's, you know, that's great.
The Lorain City Council's waiting for Cameco's expansion announcement.
Right.
They're looking
Right,
through it
that's
now.
another
The
one.
county's worked on that for over the years since the City of Lorain. City of Lorain eliminated their loan program, so we had to get a waiver from the state to do the project. That gentleman's been working on it. I've been on his tail every week on it, where we're at, those people. That's 226 jobs.
At least 260,000 square foot expansion.
Okay, so we are doing things, but they're not enough to offset what the economy's done. How do you make up 1,000 jobs? I've always said I'd rather have 30 companies with 100 jobs than one company with 3,000
We're
jobs.
part of a lot of things in this community, not just City of Lorain. We're doing bonds
Right,
for
but
Riddell.
him,
We're
Tom
doing.
knows
Well,
City
yeah,
of
I'm
Lorain.
talking
That's
the
doing
county
it.
itself.
Right,
I'm sorry,
I
I
thought
don't
you
mean
were. I
just
mean,
a
we're doing
single
bonds
Lorain.
for Riddell. We just did bonds for Wesleyan Village. We're working with
Bendix
lots
project.
of the Bendix project. We're going to be working with. We do a lot. you can, so anytime you want to visit and have a conversation on what we're doing, please stop by. The port's doing $6 million on the Riddell. Now, Elyria don't like that because they moved over to North Ridgeville, but the key was to keep them here in Lorain County for us. They get a little mad at us when we help them because they don't want them to leave someplace, but we've done a lot, and we're working through the land bank with the downtown folks in both cities, trying to reinvigorate the cities, because quite frankly, the hard manufacturing jobs probably are not going to come back in a big way. A lot's going to depend on advanced manufacturing, advanced technology, and also a lot of hospitality. So those are the areas we're working in. We got workforce development. We have people over there going out to companies and working with them. There's a lot of jobs being created. There's a lot of jobs in Avon and their park up there, over by Flavor Seal, and a few of those companies up there have been adding a lot of employees. One of the problems is we see this from companies that come here and talk to us about locating here. They need sewers, they need transportation, they need a full-fledged amount of services that we're not providing. And the reason some businesses aren't coming here, they don't want to be in the older cities right now. So that's fine, as long as they're in the community, because people can go to those jobs. But they don't have cars to go to those jobs. Plus, look at the west side of Lorain County. We've been trying to put a sewer on the west side of Lorain County since, a decade or more.
Probably
we don't have any
6,
money for the
7,
sewer.
right,
There's plenty of buildable, developable land down there, but there's no sewers. So there's no ability for companies to even want to come here and build out there, because when they're sizable, they need sewer treatment facilities. It's really wicked. We have to be able to do this. We've been trying to get a sewer down on State Route 82 coming out of Strongsville. The list goes on and on and on. Anytime you want to come down, we'll be willing to sit with you, show you charts, maps, desires, land use plans. But at the
Just
end,
got done with Columbia Township's master plan. That wrapped up, didn't it, in the past month or so?
master land use plan.
Master land use plan for planning Columbia Township, the fastest growing community in Lorain County.
It's no longer Avon Lake. In the next few years, it's going to be Columbia Township.
I have a brother that lives in Columbia
Planning,
Township. So.
5,000 or 6,000 new homes over the next decade. That needs all the new sewer issues, road issues handled. That's why the 82 is automatic. If you take Route 82, the Lorain County line, there's nothing going out there. I mean, small businesses.
Yeah.
You cross that line, what do you get? Every industrial park, manufacturing, all the way through. The reason we don't have here, no sewer lines. So I mean,
So it's
those
not
are all
just
the
with
things
job
we work
creation.
on, Tom.
Infrastructure has to come before
Right.
job creation. And you have to have the infrastructure. You have to have a ready workforce. We moved into the ACT ready workforce a component that we're trying to do. A lot of that requires businesses to work with you. I will say this: businesses want to work with you when they're desperate, and as soon as they're not desperate, they forget about you and move on, and they don't stay with the programming. But a lot's going on. But please come and see us. I would enjoy having conversations with Don with you on a lot of things we're doing.
Okay, definitely. And just one real quick, you're talking about, and I fully disagree with you guys about Kasich keeping the $2 billion. Government shouldn't be having a rainy day fund. That money should be spent. It should come back here. I've argued that about our school system. So, getting no money. What has to be done? I mean,
Change
do we
the state
do,
legislature, Tom? Problem is, districts are all gerrymandered, and they vote for the same people, and currently the other side's, from my side, is in power.
Mhm.
And
So
they
is
are
this-
following that mandate of local government, you're on your own.
So we need our state reps here discussing this problems to go back to Columbus.
Your line,
and-
Well,
man.
the term-
Your
the-
line, Mr. Lundy.
The term that I hear from people out of Columbus of a different persuasion is that counties need to get off of state welfare to counties and live on their own. And it's upsetting because the partnerships were forged decades and decades ago about how we would do things together.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally, the state lived on income tax and the counties lived on sales tax. And there was always a little bit of a sales tax in the states, but they continue to invade that. And I liked when Mr. Giardini said, and I'm surprised he didn't know because he usually keeps up on that, is, well, I was really glad they lowered my income tax. Didn't know they raised my sales tax. So did they do anything for you? It's a sleight of hand.
Yeah.
It's that's as simple as that. Where's the bean under the shells? So they're not really doing a lot for folks, but they're pretending to do a lot for folks.
Right.
And one of the things I want to say here, it hasn't been said, we probably wouldn't be as desperate as we are if it wasn't for our interest income that has gone from $8 million down to, I think we're projecting $1.5 million next year. This has been for the last 6 years that we have not had revenue of about $6.5 to $7 million that used to be generated in the county portfolio. Now, at least somebody think that we got a lot of money stuck away that we can spend that we're getting interest on. Those are funds that roll through the county. They're levy monies. Under the Ohio Revised Code, we're allowed to keep the interest income on those investments of money that goes to mental health, to DD, from levies. I don't know anybody that can lose $6 and $7 million every year for that amount of years and not need to find more revenue. Right. If interest income comes up, that's going to help us a lot, but we're at the bottom of the yield curve. If tomorrow rates started climbing, it would take us 3 or 4 years to climb into the yield curve because the requirements of our investment are so stringent, so tight, the vehicles that the money can be put in are so minute that we don't have the option of using that money in a more aggressive way to generate income. I honestly think we may not be having a lot of these talks had that interest income stayed up and increased the way it was before. It's not our fault. It's the bond market. Everybody's suffering, and it's not going to improve any time in the next couple of years. And we've been watching that, praying for that.
And the Fed's supposed to raise it today, actually.
But if they
25
raise it,
basis points.
it's going to take a lot more than one raise
Right.
of the
It'll
interest
take
rates
4 or
before the
5.
bond market comes out of the bottom. And I can go on and on. I don't know if you knew we had that much interest income, and then all of a sudden it was gone.
It's gone, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, having sat in Finance Committee in Columbus, and I've raised the question that you've raised here today, why isn't the money coming back? And Director Keene, the Finance Director, I would ask him, now that things are slowly improving, and basically we raided the schools, we raided the cities, we raided the counties, took their local government money to basically make our checkbook look better, and our savings account look better. Why isn't this money now coming back to the communities? Have you thought about doing that? And they've said no. The communities just have to find a way to do things more efficiently. That's their answer. So
well, doing more with less is not possible if you're already doing the most you can.
Right.
All right, definitely. All right, well, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Tom.
you. Yes, sir. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, if you'll just state your name and community.
Yeah, my name is Jake. I live in Amherst. I'm
What's
with
your last name, Jake?
Ellis. Sorry, Ellis. I'm with the Green Party of Lorain County. I feel like some of the problems that we face, or we have been facing for a long time, and now at this point it's escalated. And it seems like to me, there's an issue of where the money's going to come from to deal with it. And I agree that a sales tax increase, and I did vote yes on that.
Thanks.
Sales tax increase as well, because I know that there's a lot of problems in this county. And I know that a lot of the problems come from Elyria and Lorain. And I feel like the poverty levels there is probably, there's a correlation with what we see in the drug problem and the poverty problem. But
Yeah, the poverty rates in the schools probably run somewhere between 85%, 90%. I think people will be very alarmed if they knew that.
yeah, and I've been living. My girlfriend's from Lorain, and it's given me a lot of perspective on what the community, the difference in the community is between Amherst and Lorain, just a few miles apart. And almost every gentleman that I've met through her, and not out of choice really, or some sort of moral failing, but through systemic failing. I'm not saying it's necessarily your fault or law enforcement's fault. I think everybody in the county does the best they can. There's nothing wrong with that, but they sell drugs. Every guy that I've met through her sells coke, weed, or something else. I don't know. I don't want to know, in all honesty. But a lot of the problems that we have can be fixed, and I don't think that we're going to police our way out of them. I think that it's going to take a different perspective of thinking than has been currently done and has been perpetuating. The auto industry, manufacturing, and steel, I do not feel like are coming back. And I feel like that's just the corporate state, and I feel like that's how they're going to be. They're giving you guys less resources to work with. Ultimately, what it's going to take is citizen engagement. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of something called the Boston Miracle. It was done in the 1990s in Boston. with just a few researchers, religious leaders, and prosecutors and law enforcement coming together to work with, I believe the area was called Highland Heights. And throughout Boston, the crime rate had been so bad that there was a 17-month span when not one young person was killed every month. So they had sort of the same type of problem, but it was violent murder related instead of heroin related. And they were able to, with their quantitative and qualitative research, able to drop a lot of the rates in the crimes and the drug distribution by 60% in the summer of 1994. So a lot of our answers are just getting people out there, and a lot of these guys didn't even do it. They didn't get paid. The city didn't pay them. This is their project that they did.
Was this where people would turn themselves in and turn in their needles and those things? Is that what the program was?
I believe it was something like that, but the results have been replicated in Chicago and I believe different cities around the U.S. So it's something that can be done. I feel like if we change around the variables a little bit, it would help. And I don't feel like that is the full solution, because it's not. Job growth is something that I know in the county that we struggle with. And that's where I would propose a newer idea, too, in terms of sustainable agriculture. I've been talking to Dr. Brett Joseph. He's the sustainable agriculture professor at Lorain County Community College. And some of these, if given the effort, if given the time, and the care, they yield a lot of results. You're going to see higher quality of food for people in economic disparity. You're going to see, because of that, health care rates are going to drop for those people, which are going to rise to the point where I believe some economists think that the healthcare industry will actually collapse in the United States because of the rates that things are moving at. I think it's 1 in 2 minorities are going to get, and it plays into the economics, but 1 or 2 of the people in the economic disparity are going to get diabetes. 1 in 3 men get prostate cancer. The food we eat is heavily processed. There's definitely a correlation between that. But using sustainable agriculture and careful methods of growing the food, it's not actually an expensive process to build a facility that does this. I've looked at the numbers. It's, I think, $1,500 to $3,000 to build one of these, and you could employ 1 to 15 people. Depending on what you're growing, some yield more profits than others. But it can actually be done, and I think Chicago and Boston, New Jersey, and Cincinnati are having a lot of progress with this, but you actually will take people off of subsidized foods if you get enough of them to participate in this. So then you have more budget. I don't know how you guys do that, but you have less money spent on subsidizing food and subsidizing housing, because now you're employing people, you're feeding people, and essentially you're starting to change the culture of disparity into something a little more greener and a little more environmentally friendly for everybody. And I feel like that would actually start to affect, and I don't know how greatly, but I feel like if we start to change that mentality, then maybe the drugs will stop. I feel like there would be a correlation with seeing some decrease in the rates there. So that's just my input on it.
I appreciate you being engaged and being here today. I know on the renewable energy front, and I know Commissioner Kalo knows this especially well with tracking the offshore wind initiative, but we had a renewable energy portfolio put in place when Governor Strickland was in there and I was down there, and I remember the day we put it in place, the energy companies had probably the saddest looks on their faces that I've ever seen. Mostly they're smiling because they get everything they want. The hope was, with this being a manufacturing community, that we would be able to, take advantage of that and build the components that are needed for wind turbines and the gearboxes and solar panels and all those things. And
if I could add on to that, the city of Oberlin, I think, has already done something like that, to where they no longer use like Ohio Edison for utilities. They have, I think they're solar dependent, and they have a surplus of money because of it, too.
Not yet, totally. They're still with American Power, but yeah, they are. Their goal is to be carbon neutral by 2020, but they are still using AMP, and they buy.
And they generate a lot. They generate power out at from the landfill.
Yeah. Correct, and also from the solar panels that run the Peter Lewis Center. So yeah, they are working towards that. Very good people out there.
How serious are you guys' thoughts on what I've just said to you? Because to me, these are the solutions that are part of the solutions that are gonna help make Lorain County a better community.
I think what would be good to do is like to have a follow-up meeting with you, and probably sit down with Don and sit down with our economic development specialist, and like to hear more of your thoughts on this. I really appreciate that you're here and you're engaged, and
Thank you.
You want to bring some ideas to the table.
Thank you. Also, I do, for the party, I do more of the sustainable and the energy stuff, but we are in opposition to Nexus, the Nexus pipeline, which will be trying to come through Oberlin, and he has to work today, but he wanted me to ask you guys some questions, so I apologize. I know it's not really directly related to what's going on, but he wanted me to ask. He said...
The people from Nexus have come to our meetings in the past. We've had quite a few hearings with them here.
In fact, just so you know the background, we actually, one of our initiatives was we actually required Nexus to come in here. At the same time, those who did not want the pipeline came in, and they felt like they were not getting answers to their questions, and we literally facilitated a meeting in this room, in this boardroom, during a board meeting where people were getting their questions answered from Nexus. The challenge that we as a board run into is it's the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, that has jurisdiction over it. I think sometimes what happens in political circles and in government circles is sometimes false messages are sent that, you actually have a seat where you can have a direct impact on it. The reality is that that's a federal decision.
Right.
And what we did do, and just so you know for background information, is that we did send a letter and resolution to FERC indicating to them that we wanted the path to travel, if the path came through, to travel a path that was safest for the residents and would be equally environmentally friendly. We can always get you a copy of that from the clerk.
Okay.
But at that point, there's a reason why our emergency management director will even tell you about we have a lot of pipe running through Lorain County.
Mm-hmm.
And the federal government basically with FERC is that they make that decision, and there wouldn't be pipe probably anywhere in this country if the government didn't say this serves some benefit to the overall community and the overall operation of the communities by having this. So the only point I'm trying to make to you is that we don't have a seat at the table to vote on
Okay.
that. We did weigh in through a resolution. We wanted that path to be a path that was not going to cause problems with people's properties, was not going to pose a risk to environmental concerns. And we even had some folks asking us about moving the pipeline to another location. And the problem with that is that one day it's running against my property, and then I asked that it be relocated, and the next day it's running near your property.
You just not have them, too,
Yeah, or not have them, I guess, right? So, but I just wanted you to have that for background information. But we did facilitate, I think, the only conversation I'm aware of where we actually got Nexus and the group that was opposed to the pipeline in the same room to get direct questions answered. And I'm not aware of any other county accomplishing that.
The college also.
In the
too,
college.
they did
But they would break them down into their
Right, groups.
broke them down into groups. Literally, it was everybody in the room at the same
Right.
time. So I just want you to have that for background.
Okay. That's all I had to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My thoughts. Thank you.
Guys want to talk about the budget?
I'll see if anybody else has comments on the budget. Anyone
Any-
wishing to address?
Yeah.
During the budget?
Okay.
Don't look like it.
Have any questions on what I presented to you?
Well, last week when we made the decision, we were looking at a 15% cut, and that was bad enough. And there was a couple departments like the recorder and treasurer that I didn't think were even large enough to really make a difference, and I thought those would not be affected. So there's a couple of things that are a lot deeper than I anticipated last week.
Well, I know that there was several scenarios being discussed, and 15% was one of them. I can tell you that the 20% numbers are the ones that are going to make the most sense if we're to get through 17 and be able to get it into 18. See, what happens is $5 million of this budget that's even proposed is roughly carryover. When you cut departments, they're gonna spend that money that's been coming back in the form of carryover. So you got to take that into consideration, and you got to take trailing costs into consideration. If we do see reductions in force, we have considerable amount of obligation to unemployment. We have obligation to vacation and sick balances that need to be dealt with. The cuts aren't going to take effect very quickly. We have an obligation to bargain reductions in force. Even if they're not in the collective bargaining agreements, we have an obligation to the State Personnel Board of Review to deal with civil service issues that are going to take several weeks. Sometimes it could take as long as 6 to 8 weeks to get somebody laid off through bumping rights and who bumps who, and through negotiations. So you have to take all that into consideration, because those cuts are not going to come for a while yet, even if we start moving on them. And the holidays are coming. I don't think anybody's going to make any decisions through the holidays. And there's a few relievers that we've talked about that may happen next year, but we've counted on them before and they haven't materialized. So those are things we have to take a sharp look at. Can the picture improve? Well, we'll know after the first quarter if the picture can improve. But we have to do this with an eye towards where we're going to be at the end of the year.
A 20% reduction, though, Jim, we don't have enough could improve to make any significant difference in that budget. It's still what it is, and that's why I said I really wouldn't support it, and I shared that with my commissioners. We had discussions on ways to addressing it last week, but I think 20%, I'm not willing to approve anything with a cut in it currently, but 20% just devastates the county government to where there is, I mean, we're not going to accomplish anything, let's be honest. I mean, not only law enforcement, I mean, throughout county government. We're not improve anything. Tom Kelling, why aren't you doing anything? We don't do anything with the revenues we have now. We're sure as hell not going to do anything with the revenues we have then. I mean,
well, let's talk to this. 2009, 2010, we made a lot of huge changes to county government. We've never recovered from that. I don't know of many departments that were able to add additional bodies after those cuts. I know we're operating on pre-2008 staffing levels. As I keep pointing out, when Mr. Wills comes up, he's working on 2009. The Sheriff's Department told you they haven't recovered from their cuts back then. So it's not as if we chubbied up over the last 6 or 7 years since those cuts, and we can chubby down again. I'm just trying to be a little humorous in that, but it's not there. We had to stay lean. We had to stay thin going through the last several years through the recession, and we did. That's the only reason we survived. There's not a lot to carve out.
To get to this number you got, and trying to see, as a 2017 proposed budget, cutting 20% where you're at. I mean, $40 million to the $56 million we're going to spend, you didn't get to touch anyway. That's just the number that came up. There's $39,665,000 they couldn't be touched.
Well, I know that, you know that, and we've been talking about it for...
So we're taking 20% off the other, not quite $20 million. I mean, as you go through the list, I mean, the $4 million in the operations is what goes to the running the place. Veteran Services at $2 million, no cut. Board of Elections, $2.28 million, no cut. Muni Court, $1.1 million, no cut. Go up Probate Court, $570,000. I mean, that's nothing in relation to, but non-operating domestic relations, $360,000. Domestic relations juvenile, $34,72, $333, $687, 2.27, 2.1 million, 2.3 million. That was just domestic relation line items that have no touchable. To go through the courts, I mean, we're trying to operate this county and do absolutely not a whole lot other than just operate.
Well,
and taking the, $3.5 million in cuts.
Well, that's what everybody keeps saying. Well, you're just trying to scare us by, picking on the deputies or picking on the prosecutors. There are no other budgets.
Guys are the ones we can cut other than ourselves.
Right.
Well, we're cutting ourselves.
We are
right,
cutting.
we're cutting ourselves.
But
I mean,
I'm just
that's
saying,
it.
those are the big line item budgets, and those are the ones that get the most effect because
And
they're the biggest budgets.
The sheriff already shared. He's looking for legal if we do anything to cut with the jail. No offense, but repeating what you said, Sheriff, because you speak so eloquently. Sometimes I just seem to get the point across. I think we're being shared that with the prosecutors to a degree also. You did the budget, thank you.
I told you guys a year ago where we were going. I told you 2 years ago where we were going. I actually told you 10 years ago where we would be. And we were able to work our way through that. The casino revenues gave us quite a bit of relief. The interest income being at all-time levels through the late part of the 2000s gave us a lot of relief. But the realization is those things are no longer giving the relief that is necessary to sustain county operations. And by the way, county operations are going to continue to grow even while you got to cut the budget. Courts are going to grow.
Probation office?
Probation office is going to grow. The need for the jail is going to grow. They're not going to shrink. The problems are not going to shrink because your revenues are shrinking.
Right. And just because the voters keep saying no, it doesn't make our problems go away. And the problem that I see is I don't think we will ever pass a sales tax in Lorain County. Most people in Lorain County are not going to use our services. If you're not a criminal or you're not a victim of crime, chances are you're not going to use a lot of the county services.
Excuse me, 50% of all people do get divorced, though, so you get to see DR.
One time.
At least once.
Okay, hopefully.
Some of us are habitual offenders. Look, 85% of the residents live in an incorporated area. They don't care about road patrol. That's 85 to 15 right there. And then seemingly the 15% that don't live in the urban area don't really care at all either. Only about 10 or 15% of people actually access services through the justice system. The other 85, 90% of the people, they see the courthouse, they read the stories in the paper, but they don't have a tangible link, an emotional tie to it, unless they have it to a family or themselves. It's really hard. Most counties impose their taxes. They locally, firemen can get things passed, police can get things passed. It's a tighter community. There's direct services, the direct hands-on right there. Ours is just too big. The state gets away with stuff because they're so big that it's impossible to mount an effective charge to reduce what the state's doing. If you wanted to referendum their sales tax or try to reduce it, you have to go for how many counties, get how many votes. You need a massive, massive organization to do that. Commissioner Kelly, you went through that with some of the ballot issues through the multiple counties and trying to get things on a ballot or off a ballot. It's an impossible task. So what do? They take it out on counties. You can't take it out really on the states, and locally they can touch their services. So we become the victims in all of their discontentment.
In most counties, again, going back, I deal through the state organization, and it's part of county government. This is what county government needs for revenue. It's different if you're doing a specialty tax. Let's say if you're doing a transit, that goes to ballot. You've got, different specific items you want to do. Right. Those go out to ballot for it's a choice whether or not the residents want or not. This is operations of county government. It's a quarter on $100, guys.
And let me point out that I didn't give you this budget as a scare tactic.
I know you didn't. No, this is the budget you enjoy. I had this argument with you yesterday and the day before.
Even it will become to the end of the year, cash flow could be a problem. And then moving into January, trying to make payroll and things like that. So you have to have, we don't have lines of credit. Businesses have lines of credit. The cash flow gets tight, they draw on their lines of credit, then they replenish their lines of credit. We don't have that. So we have to operate a cash business for those things completely. And as you know, there's some bills coming due. Keep you in notes so long. I told you about the capital improvement notes are getting a little long in the tooth. That we keep recapitalizing the interest on them, so the cost goes up to make those payments. And of course, we're working on some projects that needed to be done, had to be done, and the bill's going to come due for those projects too. So I don't want anybody to think, oh, I gave you a scare tactic budget. The numbers are in front of you.
I know.
I think revenue projections are a bit down, but here's the problem: because things are so tight, we can't say that they're down. We used to have enough ability with carryover and some cash flow to say, okay, we think revenues are going to be a little better than this. We can wait and see how the year comes out. If the revenue numbers aren't better and you wait, you're in disaster.
They're all where the Budget Commission keeps it tight. I mean, we're bringing in almost $3 million more in revenue than what the certificate was at first of the year, correct? Give or take a couple $100,000.
But the governor said there's going to be a recession.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm just being a little flippant, Commissioner, but there's not enough ability to be wrong this time.
Well, I mentioned the fact that I don't think we'll ever pass a sales tax, but I think if everybody in the community heard one of these meetings, sat in a public hearing, got all the information, I think they would agree that the sales tax was needed. And I say that for two reasons now. Last week, because we had two people that came here to tell us not to impose a sales tax. And by the end of the meeting, after they heard, it was just the coroner and who was the other, who else came up last week? Prosecutor?
Yeah.
They changed their mind. They said, you guys need a sales tax, but you have to educate the people. We have had the sales tax on the ballot so many times. We've tried to educate the people. We've had public hearings in the evening, during the day, out in the communities. I don't know how to get the word out. I mean, Tony Giardini, I asked him to come here today because he said we should not impose a sales tax. I'm like, but Tony, you don't understand. Come to the meeting. He changed his mind today, didn't he? Because he heard from the sheriff's department, he heard from the prosecutor's office, and he sees the numbers. So, you know, we made this decision last week, and I wore it for a week, and it was such a heavy burden to think of just destroying county government. I thought it was important that we have a unanimous board when it came to imposing, but after wearing that decision, I believe it is more important to make the unpopular and possibly politically threatening decision to do what I know what is best for Lorain County, and unfortunately that is to impose a sales tax. And all these deputies out here, they're going to come after us. They're going to try to, referendum this. We need you guys to be out there and helping us so that doesn't happen. Because with the heroin epidemic that we have going on, the crime that's causing, we need more people, more law enforcement out there on the streets, not less. So we can't afford any of you guys to go. So, tape change. Okay, so I'm not sure where we left off there, but Jerry, in order to revisit our resolution from last week, is it that we need to renew the resolution, or how do we go about if we want to?
Yes, you need to make a motion to renew the motion to enact the sales tax, if you're doing the same one you did last week.
I would love to make that motion, Commissioner, since I voted on it last week. To the clerk, I'd like to renew the motion of resolution number 16-772 that was adopted December 7th, 2016, increasing the sales and use tax pursuant to revised code 5739.021.
He can't hear you.
Who can't hear me?
In the back.
Oh, okay. And 5741.021 by 1/4% for a continuing period of time for the purpose of providing additional general revenues for Lorain County.
And as I said in our previous meeting, I think, as I would do in Columbus, I would always honor fellow members' motion for things to be brought up for a vote. So I would second that motion.
Any further discussion?
One more time, guys, before you go, sorry, since I made the motion. We're going through this again. We know our needs out there. Again, it's 25 cents on $100, expendable goods. I think it's the right thing to do. We should have done this years ago and gotten it done. We wouldn't be in this position
Well, we
today.
have done it before.
Yeah, right, but we should have gotten it again and again and again, like Groundhog Day. But I'm hoping this time that we can move forward and work towards, because I've got some budgetary issues, hoping this goes the way we hope. But, it's time. 1985 was, I think, George Corey, our illustrious George Corey, who was here, was actually the last commissioner who got a sales tax. Continuing.
But that was for the jail.
No, it wasn't.
Wasn't it?
85, the original sales tax.
Right.
George Len Reichland.
Rittenhour?
Who?
Rittenhour.
Jacoby. Was it? Okay, but 1985. That's the end of my comments. Go ahead. Sorry, Commissioner.
That's okay. I can tell you that this has been a very troublesome week as well, too, looking at the numbers. They are very deep and significant. The issue that I've been dealing with is when I was running for this office, I made the campaign promise that I would not be imposing a sales tax. And I can tell you, for everybody in this room, if I give you my word is my bond. With that said, in the same breath, the need is real. The financial situation is very serious, and I have to stick to my word. But at the same time, I want to stress to you that the need is real. The financial situation is very serious. I've had a very strong track record in Columbus of supporting local government, supporting law enforcement. I think the sheriff can vouch for that. But the reality is that I feel that my word is my bond. And I had told the voters of Lorain County when I was seeking this office that I would not impose without a vote. And I will be sticking to my word today, but in the same breath, the need here is real, and the financial situation is very serious.
Mr. Kalo.
Yes.
Mr. Lundy.
No.
Ms. Kowski.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioners, with that vote, we still have to deal with the appropriation.
Correct. I got a
Since-
suggestion. So
since-
if you don't mind.
Oh, please do.
No. I've been working on this. I got a fetish, I guess, for numbers. We've got a special revenue fund. That's just normal appropriation. So I guess, can we just pass the special revenue, Mr. President, and then get into the general fund appropriations? It's 18 and 19. It's separate.
Okay. So in other words, we need to amend this so that it shows that it's the 2017 special revenue without the annual appropriation.
They're two separate things.
They're separate.
ones.
So
Special-
number
The special
18 is-
revenue would be number 18.
Correct. That's
Number
just
18 to approve the 2017 special revenue annual
Okay.
appropriations.
Okay. And so moved.
second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Okay.
Now on to 19, if you don't mind. I
You wanted to
appreciate
make-
all you've done. I want to have some discussion just before we get into this, because this is going to be the ugliest one going, I guess. I appreciate all your work, Mr. Cordez. You can chime in anytime. You can interrupt me anytime you want. But you've proposed 20% cuts. I can't agree with that. We have now approved to put the 0.25% up. So we're praying for 30 days. But instead of implementing these cuts at this time, I'd like to entertain just doing a 2016 freeze. No
I
increases.
don't think we'll lose much time. I think,
Baby doesn't like that idea.
Baby wants increases, can't blame you.
I think the freeze is appropriate while we look at what's going to happen over the next month.
Right, we've got, again, a 30-day window.
But I would pass it as a temporary.
Yes, as a temporary, without a doubt, always have. Move forward with a temporary budget like we've done in the past. Actually, it's the annual appropriation, doing it quarterly.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not a temporary, it's an
We're not
annual
required to
appropriation.
make a permanent appropriation until the end of March.
Correct, we have till March 31st for that. But I would think, in light of what we've had happen here today, thank you very much, Commissioner Kokoski, that would be the proper thing to do. And
If things-
we'll have to revisit this, I mean, we meet again January, what, 9th, 10th, when's our organizational meeting? And
9th is the organizational,
When's the first full meeting?
the 18th.
The 18th.
We'll have a
So
clear
know where
line
we're
of
at.
sight by the 18th.
Yeah.
By the 18th, if it goes sideways, then we'll have to readdress. But I think we've made the right move now. And I just think we're better off doing that. I mean, if the electeds don't have a problem with that, again, the 18th may change things.
Well, there is a problem, though, doing it that way. And it's more a paper problem.
Mechanic.
You still have to reduce the budget because you have to balance it, even going into the first quarter.
Right,
So
let's
you,
reduce the fourth quarter down to whatever it takes to get us
Right.
that balance.
you listening, Lisa?
You getting this?
Because you can't pass an unbalanced budget. Even though you anticipate that there will be revenue, it's not showing. So you're still going to have to, and it's not just the fourth quarter, you're still going to have to decrease people's budget, all right? But with the understanding that you're going to change that in January.
I don't think we have to decrease all the quarters, Jim. Why can't we leave the first quarter?
Because you have
as
to, it has to be
Lisa?
balanced, right, going into the new year.
Yeah,
Yes.
come on up, Lisa.
I haven't had to go through these mechanics
Yeah,
before.
I'm telling you, let's get it right.
I'm surprised Lisa doesn't have gray hair.
She does. A lot of hair dye.
She dyes. Bart told me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks. I got the greatest husband ever. I thought we were just going to pass a first quarter budget, in which case,
We don't have to have it balanced until March 30th?
no. The first quarter budget will be, and I'll say this for everybody out here because I obviously do not have everything broken down, so I will get everything to everybody. But the first quarter budget for 2016 was about 40.3 million. Now, bear in mind, and these are calls that you'll have to make, is we have to allow for there are some increases and some decreases that are going to come off of this final number, but roughly 40 million would be your first quarter budget.
We don't have to de-appropriate then through the rest of the year?
What we would do then is we would appropriate the second, third, and fourth quarter when you guys start meeting again in January, and then as we've done in prior years, we keep an eye on everything. If you decide that you need to make cuts to either one of any of those quarters.
We got to explain this a little better because if you break it down by quarter, I'm not a brilliant guy, but that adds up to 160 million. So we should really explain that because we have upfront costs. We can't lower electric, we can't lower rent, we can't lower, those things all need to be passed in a budget.
The first quarter entails 1/4 of every department's salary and PERS line items, and then they get 100% of all of their supplies and gas, right, their annual appropriation.
Right.
The only thing that's quarterly is going to be salary and PERS.
Right. I knew exactly what you're saying, but
Okay.
if somebody's going to turn and go, oh, they're only giving a quarter, it's $40 million.
Right. So and each quarter will then equate to roughly 6.6 million, I think.
So the only thing that's
At a freeze.
actually technically quarterly is capital, human capital.
Correct, personnel costs.
Okay. Everything else is going to pretty much get an annual appropriation in the first quarterly appropriation.
Correct.
So please, nobody sit out there and go, well, it's only $56 million budget, and 4 times 4 is, a lot more than $56 million.
60.
Government finance is not like doing your home checkbook.
No. No, it is not.
Well, and some things we have to be paid at one time. It's not broken down into monthly payments. We have a lot of things that have to be paid on an annual basis, and they usually get paid early in the year.
So I have a motion on the floor to approve the general fund appropriations
For the
for
freeze.
the 2016 freeze as a annual appropriation with a
No, it's a
quarterly-
temporary.
Is it considered still a temporary?
Yes.
then? Okay, with quarterly allocations.
Yes.
And I'll second that, and I'll have some discussion. Okay. Yeah, just so everybody understands, as I said, I had made a campaign promise not to impose. Obviously, moving forward, this is based upon the imposition of the sales tax. So it looked quite contradictory if I oppose imposing the sales tax, but at the same time support moving forward what's based upon the imposition of the sales tax. So that's why I would have to also vote no on this issue. Once again, stating in the same sentence, the need is real and the financial situation is serious. If other people were sitting in this chair, they would be bashing this decision today. I realize the severity of it. At the same time, I have to keep my word and keep my promise.
Any other discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
No.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Okay. Unless you have everything else, I think I must have Mr. Cortez.
I have the supreme exalted power by resolution now.
You're giving
You are the
everybody
man.
a raise.
You are the man.
Do you have any other comments today?
Oh, is that what you were asking? I thought you said you
No,
could get
we're
the
up to you
information.
now.
I thought you said you needed budget numbers
Oh,
and
no.
stuff from me.
Huh?
I'll get all that from Lisa to you.
Oh my gosh.
No, you have nothing?
Why don't we wait for the room to clear?
It's just comments. Go ahead.
We'll be done minutes.
This is our last meeting of the year?
We're not done
This
yet.
is the last meeting. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas,
We
guys.
got like 5 minutes and then we're gonna
Yep.
be done.
Thank you and thank you.
We need your help. The rest, everybody's signing petitions from here going forward. No petitions.
Don't just stop those township people from petitioning.
We need to.
That's your job.
Yeah.
You gotta
Mics
stop
are
those
open.
guys. I don't
Mics are
care.
open.
Yeah, mics
I'll
are
say
open,
it
'cause we're not out of
publicly. I've
session
always
yet,
said
so-
it. If they don't want you, then.
So if you, if you're stating.
You gotta, guys, you
Recording.
just gotta stop those township people from petitioning.
Okay. Thank you. You bet.
Come on, come on, come on. I'm not kissing you.
Thank you.
Hey, what's happening, Dan? How you doing?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Take care. Good to see you,
Oh, is that
sir.
your nephew? I didn't know that. Okay, I'm sorry. Of course, my dad, I want to see him normally when he's in uniform.
He's always.
All right, you ready? Did you have
Is it-
anything, Mr. Cordell?
I
No?
do.
Okay.
I was just
okay.
waiting for,
All right.
it is our last meeting of the year unless we have an emergency situation. Clearly, we have the ability to call the board into session if things need to be addressed. So with that, I'd like to wish everybody a happy holiday season, find peace, and I hope that when people get into the new year, that they have much success. That's all I have this morning. Thank you.
Mr. Ennis?
I have two requests to the commissioners, and for our young man there, this is not an agreement that approves of Nexus or supports them, but I do need to get approval of what we call a road use maintenance agreement.
Aruma.
Right.
With Nexus, and what this is it says if they get their line approved, that they will guarantee us that they will repair their roads. They have to put up a bond, they have to do things to protect the environment. So this does not advance the Nexus thing or support them in any way. It's just forcing them to provide
This protects our
protection
community.
for us. I was going to say, just after you got up, I'm going to have to ask, all 7 of the townships that will be affected by the line and be traveled through have all already agreed and signed onto it. So I would ask for a resolution approving the RUMA agreement with Nexus.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Secondly, I have another one of our deeds where our drug forfeiture, where we've sold the land, and I need a resolution approving transfer of property at 19930 Whitehead Road, Wellington, to J&D Falte LLC.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
And then I do need to discuss probably the same pending litigation issue that Mr. Cortez wants to talk to.
Commissioners report.
I didn't really prepare anything again. I've been so busy, but I just want to say that this was a very difficult decision last week and this week, but I actually feel much better about the decision that I made today. I couldn't sleep well at night thinking about what this was going to do to Lorain County if we didn't get this sales tax money that's so desperately needed. So hopefully everybody's going to have a better Christmas. I know I will, knowing that I did the right thing. So, end of my report.
Yeah, thank you very much, Commissioner. I appreciate your reconsideration on this. Again, we've been here a long time
Yeah.
doing this. Let's hope this one for the best. Again, very busy week, but condolences. 2 friends this week. Ray Baraga passed away, and he was a longtime volunteer and coach in Lorain City Schools. Actually did a minute of silence for him at the Lorain High game. And then we lost Tim Big Dog Graham.
Yeah, I saw that.
Big Dog from Wellington. He was a great guy, and loved spending time with his food was wonderful. Quite opinionated, so he and I always had very animated conversations on issues. So
You
Couldn't
tend to
imagine
find those
that.
kind of people.
it is. It's hard to find.
You tend to find those kind of people.
I tend to
Oh,
find him.
tend
It's
to.
hard to find guys like Big Dog, but condolences to his family also. Merry Christmas to everyone. It's a very difficult year. Let's hope next year will be more productive, as Mr. Kelling asked. So, thank you.
And, yeah, I'd like to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. If I find 2 lumps of coal in my stocking, I'll know the 2 people it came from.
All the guys that left, man, you're going to have a dump truck.
Yeah, you may need to get a bulldozer to your driveway soon.
Okay. Well, thanks for the holiday message. Had a chance to attend the North Ridgeville Chamber of Commerce, their holiday luncheon, a very active group over there. They always recognize the social services type groups that are very successful in the community and help a lot of families that are struggling, helping them out. And it was a very good luncheon. Congratulations, Sherry Glass, Chris Cook, for their swearing in and soon to be swearing in of Judge Chris Cook. They worked very hard. I think the community should be just thrilled. You've got 2 just very intelligent, very thorough, credible, just 2 down-to-earth great people you got coming in to serve as judges, so they will represent you well in the court system, no question about that. Had a chance to catch up with Ray Noble and his whole group, and saw you there as well, Commissioner, at the Mercy Cancer Center for those who are survivors of prostate cancer, and can't say enough about people getting involved in raising awareness. Men always want to be the tough guys and they don't want to get anything checked out. But boy, the sooner you can get stuff checked out and detected, the greater your likelihood is of getting it treated and surviving. Assist Avon Lake had a potluck dinner on Sunday. I was not able to attend that, but I know they're very concerned, Commissioner Kokoski, on this heroin epidemic, throughout the county, and that group is very active. And then last night had the opportunity to go to the Lorain Democratic Women's function. Wasn't able to stay there long because we had another function at 7 o'clock I had to attend. But they always work so hard and do great work, and can't thank them enough for all that they do to help make the community better. So Merry Christmas to everyone. I just want to say that I know that we put our staff through a lot of work here in the past couple of weeks trying to put all these numbers together, and I don't want to blame it all on the county administrator, but
please do. Please do.
But really appreciate all the work that you do, Jerry, all the work that you do, and Lisa and Tony, and the list will go on and on, but we just have a really great professional team here, and we're down to the bare bone. If I told you that I don't want to embarrass him, but our IT director actually is the backup guy for the mail room. I don't know any other company where an IT director goes and sorts mail when somebody's out. But that just goes to show you how we're, bare bone. So we're trying to run things as tightly as possible, but, we're not getting any help from Columbus, and very concerned about the governor's talks, but you have got to contact Columbus and tell them you want your money back. You've got to tell them you want your money back. We can't be nice about this any longer. That concludes my report.
January 9th at 9:30 will be our organizational meeting. That same day at 11 will be our Transportation Improvement District meeting. January 17th at 11 will be Stormwater District. January 18th at 9:30 will be our full board commissioners meeting. January 24th at 11 will be our investment advisory. And then the State of Ohio mileage reimbursement for 17 will be 52 cents. For correspondence.
Is that what the federal
It's
is?
the state.
Or the
That's what we've made our
The state,
resolution by.
okay.
Yeah.
I would move to approve the board correspondence, and as a Christmas gift to the clerk, waive the reading.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Is there any further public comment?
Any other public comment? No? Seeing none at this time, I would move that we go into executive session, discuss personnel issues outlined by the county administrator, legal issues outlined by the assistant prosecutor.
Second.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
This has been a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda for a printable copy of the agenda.